Hello, good evening, everybody. I understand that people had a difficult time understanding the Wi-Fi, so please let me help you again with the password. A like apple, capital, yes. The capital W, capital M. So the abbreviation for Astoria Romana, capital A, capital W, capital M, hyphen, capital P, like Peter, RIVATEASTORIA 25 22. AWM hyphen private Astoria 25-22.
One more time, anyone have a capital and expense item to present to Community Board 1? That now includes board members. No one. Right? We've had 2 requests from the office that we will add to the capital and expense. One's in addition, one to move up 21st Street, 20th Avenue sewer lines at 32nd Street. There's flooding in that area. And the ice skating rink at Astoria Park, which is currently number 26, to move that to number 7. Because while that was a pipe dream years ago, it could conceivably happen now. So we would move it up to show our support. Thank you. Since we have a few minutes, I'm going to do some housekeeping tonight. As many of you are new to us, only been seen on video and not at all, when you make a comment, could you please announce your name until you get very familiar with your faces. Thank you. Since we have a few minutes, newly appointed board members this year, you just want to announce your name so we can place it with a face. Brian, you can go first.
So Brian Martinez. Brian Huff.
Who else is brand new this year? Hi, Naz.
I have Chris Hadley.
Hi, Chris.
Ethan Lowens.
Thank you, Ethan. Go ahead. Thank you, Thomas.
Frank Fredericks.
You're a familiar face, though, Frank, so thank you. You are a familiar face already, but thank you.
I just joined.
I know, but we know you. We do. That wasn't meant in a bad way. Okay.
I'm just going to mention during the meeting, once we start talking about items, please make sure you use the microphone for the recordings, because if you don't use the microphone, it makes it very difficult for us to do the minutes because we can't hear what's being said, and it gets lost in the transcript. So always pass down the mic. You do not have to remove the mic from the stand. You can just pass the whole stand, okay?
Richard, welcome. There's the list. Does anyone have the sign-in sheet? Can we pass it down this way? Oh, I mean, you have it. Thank you.
Sweet things from Boston, so young and green. Moved down Wisconsin, where the hell am I? Ain't nothing. We can't dance together. Please take me along when you slide on down. Hey, 19, that's Rita Franklin. She don't remember me. Hard times are falling, soul survivors. She thinks I'm crazy, but I'm just growing old. Hey, 19. We can't dance together. Please take me along when you slide on down. Skate a little lower. Cuervo gold, fine gold Barbie, make tonight a wonderful day. Say it again. Cuervo gold, fine gold Barbie, make tonight a wonderful
Okay, this time we're really going to start. Okay? Thank you. Quiet. Okay. Thank you so much, Rod. Before we begin, for those new members and for all of us who haven't met in person, I want to introduce the executive board. Richard Guzami, second vice chair. Dan Aliberti, secretary. Amy Howe, first vice chair. And Tom Ryan, our sergeant at arms. And Evie will be coming. She's not here at the present time. So thank you and welcome. great to see everyone in person. It's been years, literally. So, and I think most of us are very happy to be back in person because we have a better connection with others when we meet in person. And we have the privilege tonight of having Mr. Alexander Kipp here. I see you, Alex. And he's first up. He's going to do his parody on the Conflicts of Interest Board.
No, don't frame it that way. You get me in trouble with my boss. Okay, so hey everybody, I see some familiar faces. Some of you have had this kind of 15 minutes before. I see some new faces. You haven't had it, so this is going to be a review for some people, new information for other people. Let me just first say, this is my favorite community board meeting to do every year. I think every time I'm here, there's Steely Dan playing before this thing starts, and that's one of my favorite bits. So anyway, thank you for that. Now, friends, there are two parts to this. The first part's super short, and then the second part's going to be just a tiny bit longer. The first part is the Conflict of Interest Board, where I work at, mostly so you know how you can use us, and most of that's going to be when you got questions about compliance with the Conflict of Interest law. And then the second part's going to be what are the kinds of questions that community board members ask, and what are the kind of typical answers that you get in very kind of typical generalized fact patterns. So here we go, part one. The two things you got to know about us. We are a little tiny city agency. We are charged with administering and enforcing and interpreting and giving advice on Chapter 68 of the City Charter, which is the Conflict of Interest Law. Most of that law was conceived to comply, or apply to people who work full-time for the city, but there is a section that very explicitly talks about voting and community board members, and that's what we're going to spend most of our time on today. Now, the two things that we do there are we give lots and lots and lots of confidential, free advice to community board members and other people when they've got questions about how to comply with this law. So anything ever comes up, you're like, I don't know if I can vote on this thing or not. What do I do? You call us up. We'll talk to you one-on-one for free, confidentially. I sent a flyer to Florence yesterday. I think she'll email it along. Just going to review everything we talk about today. Most importantly, on the back, it's going to have our telephone number and our website. That's how you get a hold of us. Everything's free. Everything's confidential. Caveat to that, which is, in life, not just in conflict of interest, in life, when is the best time to ask for advice? Yeah, before you do the thing, because if I ask advice about a bunch of bad things I already did, that's not advice, that's a confession, right? Hey, I took all these bribes. What do you think, right? I think you're under arrest, right? What do you want me to say? So call us before, right? There's no penalty. We'll talk to you anytime you want. Everything that we give you is going to be confidential, which means we can't talk to anybody else about it, but what we can do is give you a copy of what we say, and then you can show the world if you want to. That's your choice. So advice is how we interface with community board members all the time, and we like that because we don't want to interface with community board members or any other public servants on the enforcement side. There have been, in the annals of the 30 years of existence of this law, there have been a couple of enforcement cases against community board members. Let's not add to that pile. Let's just have everybody call early and often to be on the safe side. We'll give you the advice. It's free. Now that we've done that, let's move on to the big part of this, which is conflicts of interest law and how it impacts voting. First question, as I always ask in these things, is when does a conflict of interest prohibit you from participating in the discussions? Never. Very good. The technical answer is almost never, but basically it's never. It's never. You can always, with an asterisk, participate in the discussions. The only time you can't is, let's say this community board wanted to engage a community board member and pay them money to provide services to this community board. That community board member would need a waiver that this community board would have to support, and the discussion about whether or not this board would support that waiver would be a discussion that the person who's going to sell services to this board would have to recuse themselves from. But that's not normally what we talk about. What we normally talk about is that people who serve on the community boards have interests in the district, and when an interest of yours comes up and it's going to be discussed, you can participate in the discussion, but you can't vote in that. And that's our first stop today, is when are you precluded from voting? The first big category is when the vote would result in a direct gain or mitigation of loss to your interest or the interest of someone with whom you are associated. So think my business that I own, or the place I work at, or my client, like if I'm a lawyer in the district and I've got a client, and let's say I represent that client on his will, but now he's got a zoning variance before this community board. Even though I don't deal with his variance, I've got to recuse myself. I can't vote on his issue because I got a financial relationship with that client and dealing with his will, right? So this is the first big category. Now, do you understand this? I'm going to use the example I always love to use, which is liquor licenses. So let me just fantasize for a moment, because I didn't always want to be a director of conflict of interest training. I had dreams at some point in my life, and one of those dreams was to own a tiki bar. It's a huge revival right now in Los Angeles. Big. Like in Los Feliz, I went to one a couple months ago. It was like amazing. But in any case, so I want to do that. I want to do that kind of tiki bar. It's right next to like a big Scientology center for some reason. But in any case, so I'm going to own myself a tiki bar. And the question is, I'm also on the community board. Can I vote on my own liquor license application? No, you dummy. Why are you giving me training on that? I already know that. You're right. Okay, so you're right. That's obvious. So what's the process then? You disclose, hey, that's my tiki bar. Then you're free to discuss. You'd be crazy not to re-up my liquor license because of all the great things that a tiki bar does to a neighborhood. I don't know, be creative. And then I do not vote on it because it is my own bar that the liquor license application pertains to. 3 Ds. Now, crucial in understanding how this law is written is that direct is a very important adjective here. And so the classic example is, let's say I open up a tiki bar. It's somewhere down the street, maybe not too far from the Bohemian Beer Hall, which I used to visit many decades ago. And now somebody opens a tiki bar up right next to mine, and they're applying for a liquor license application. Can I vote on their liquor license application?
Yes.
Yes. Because you might say, well, isn't that going to impact your business? We have no idea, but that is a putative effect on your interest because ultimately it's not your bar. You don't own that bar. It's not a direct effect on the business you own. It's to somebody else's business. Therefore, you don't have to preclude yourself from voting on somebody else's liquor license application, even if it's on the same block as the restaurant or bar that you own or work at. Now, that's number one. Let's go to number two, which is sitting on the board of a not-for-profit. When you sit on the board of a not-for-profit, you are associated with that not-for-profit. Even if you're not being paid, you have duties under state law, duty of care, duty of loyalty, duty of something else I can't remember, doesn't matter. But in any case, so let's say I'm on the board of directors of the not-for-profit that runs Socrates Sculpture Park. I think that's somewhere around here, right? So if we're going to vote on something like a funding thing from the Department of Cultural Affairs to Socrates Sculpture Park, I have to say, hey, I sit on that board, then I'm free to discuss why we should fund or why I think we should fund this initiative, and then I do not vote because I am the board, I'm on the board of the recipient of the funding in question. That's the classic second 3Ds thing. Third 3Ds example is going to now take us off of the job or not-for-profit association and talk about government agencies. Anybody here work for a government agency? Which one? You over there with the glasses. He's like, who you look at? I have a lazy eye. Right? I'm kind of tired too, so it gets worse though. You right there. Yeah.
New York City Public Schools.
New York City Public Schools, also called the Department of Education. That is a great example because there's 1,800 schools and there's many different DOE locations, and here's how that works. If anything comes up for vote that is directly going back to the city agency or state agency or federal agency that employs me, I've also got to use the 3Ds. And you're like, why? That's not a private thing. It's not a profit thing. You're right. But there's this principle in the community board voting that says that the votes are essentially supposed to be untouched by outside influence. And if DOE pays me, salary to work for them 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week, and I'm doing this thing part-time, it sort of appears to the public that my vote might be affected by my employer who could be putting pressure on me to vote a certain way. And so therefore, if an issue comes up, if I'm a DOE employee and it's a direct DOE request, I got to use the 3Ds. Disclose, discuss, don't vote. Now here's the question. I work in a school in this community board district, and I'm also on this community board, definitely got to do the 3Ds. What if I work in a school in Staten Island, and I'm on this community board? First of all, But sorry for your commute, that's bad. But also, like, does the same thing hold? And the answer is yes. The board does not distinguish what borough, whatever. It's the city agency. So if you work at DOT, but you work in Water Street, downtown 55 Water Street, where the headquarters is, guess what? When you want to request a speed bump on the street from DOT, you've got to use the 3 Ds: disclose, discuss, don't vote. That's the third issue. So it's direct benefit or mitigation of loss to your interests, or to the interests of someone with whom you are associated, and that's a technical legal term. What does that mean? That means spouse, parent, child, sibling, or anyone with whom I have a financial relationship, like a landlord, a creditor, a client, a debtor. Those kinds of people are considered my associates. Also not-for-profit if I sit on their board, right? And then also, if I work at a government agency, I can't vote on the thing if the request for the services or the funding or whatever is going to that agency. Okay, that's the 3 Ds in a nutshell. Now, here's the next question is, how do conflicts of interest affect voting? Let's just review quorum for a second. What do you need to pass? What do you need to get work done at a community board? What do you need? How many? How many do you need? Quorum. How many is quorum? Yeah, 50% plus 1. So let's say 26 people show up. Great. We're doing business tonight. Now, if 26 people are eligible to vote, how many yes votes do we need to pass any issue? Math geniuses. Okay. We need 50% plus 1, and 50% of 26 is 13, plus 1 is 14. We need 14 yes votes. When you're eligible to vote, you can vote no. You can abstain, or you can vote yes. But remember, you got to have more yeses than the combination of noes and abstentions to pass the issue, because there has to be a majority of people who actually say yes to a thing for the thing to pass. Okay, now here's our problem. We got 26 people who showed up, and now 3 of them got conflict of interest. That means there's only 23 eligible votes in this room on this particular issue. Is quorum affected? No, it is not. Those 3 other people are still in the room that evening, but there's only 23 eligible votes on that issue. So how many yes votes do you need to pass when you've got 3 people who are ineligible to vote? 3 out of 26. Harder math problem. Right? You're going to need 12. You're going to need 12 votes to pass then, because that would be a majority of yes versus 11 no's plus abstentions. So while it affects the vote tabulation, it doesn't affect quorum for the evening, and that is the takeaway there. Now let's move on to topic 3, which is chairing. A chair of a community board could have a conflict like anybody else. They're going to use the 3 Ds: disclose, discuss, don't vote. But here's the difference. When I am the chair and I've got an issue where I'm going to use the 3 Ds that evening because I can't vote, then I also cannot be chair for that evening. Not just for that issue, but for that evening. That's a little bit of like an extra sort of like you step back from it for the whole evening because the chair has the power to set the agenda, blah, blah, blah. And then let's move on to committee chairs. You can sit on any committee you want, any committee. But let's go back to my friend with the DOE school. What's that committee that deals with kids? Is it youth services? What do you call that here? Education committee? What's it called? Education committee. So if I'm a DOE teacher, I can sit on the education committee, but I cannot be chair of that committee. And the reason why is because every time that education committee talks about something DOE related, which is going to be a lot of times, I can't be the chair anyway. Somebody else is going to have to do that work, so I can't do that. And for those of you in private practice, let's say, for example, an architect who practiced in this district. If that architect is chair of the land use committee and they have to use the 3 Ds more than 3 times in a 12-month period, they can't be the chair either, right? Because essentially they're going to miss 3 of those meetings as being chair. Somebody else should be that chair. Now, that is a relatively new part of the conflict of interest law. So if there's anybody going like, whoa, I don't know, am I skating up to the line? Don't worry about it. Call us for legal advice. We'll work it out. We know that maybe not everybody was aware of that. It's a relatively new thing that happened in rulemaking a couple of years ago. But check in with us on that. Okay, now that we've done all that, now we can do the other things that are super, super quick. The phrase, do you know who I am? Has often not worked out. It's never worked out for me. You know, do you know who I am? I work for the Conflict of Interest Board. What? Well, like, that's a fake thing, but it doesn't even work out for people who are a little bit more powerful than, say, me. Like, we got a representative from Colorado, Lauren Boebert, who used Do You Know Who I Am after she got kicked out of the theater this week. We had a guy from DOJ who got pulled over from drunk driving in Florida, used Do You Know Who I Am to maybe get a easier time with the cops. And we've had Do You Know Who I Am occasionally in New York City government. And I'm just saying to everybody here, look, whatever resources and power that we have to do our city jobs, if I'm on a community board, it's my authority, it's my title, it's maybe a business card, it's the email address, it's for city stuff and not for anything else. And that's, you know, just standard thing you'd hear in government anywhere. We don't have to belabor that point. Let's talk about gifts for a second. There's a gifts rule. It says, I don't take valuable gifts from people doing business or seeking to do business with the city. Valuable means something worth $50 or more. Now, I don't know about you. I worked for the city for over 15 years. I've never been offered $50 worth of anything. So, you know, it doesn't happen to a lot of us. But what does that mean for you? You're volunteering your time, not that many hours a month. You're part-timers. You're not paid. You've got relationships in the community. You've got relationships with clients. What does this mean? You can't take gifts from them? You can't go to their holiday parties like you would have if you weren't on the service? That would be insane. That cannot be what the law means. Here's what it really means in practice. It means anytime someone's trying to hook me up because I am a community board member or because I'm about to do something as a community board member, that thing should be refused. So let me give you 2 examples. Let's say I'm a community board member and I'm always going to this bar, and every once in a while as I'm talking the bartender's ear off, he buys me around. And now I'm a community board member and the guy buys me around. Not because I'm a community board member, I didn't even tell him about that. I was whining about something else, you know? But I've now accepted this free drink from this guy and I'm a community board member and I might have to make a determination on his liquor license application someday in the future. Do I have to now refuse that beer? No, I don't. They're not giving it to me because I'm a community board member. They're not even giving it to me because they like me. They probably don't, right? They're doing it because it's good business practice. They get better tips. They're like, come in later. Maybe I bring my friends. That's got nothing to do with this. Contrast to that, someone says, hey, we're getting our liquor license re-upped. Why don't you come down to our restaurant for a yummy fact-finding mission? We'll comp you. That's the kind of place you got to pay your own way. Right? And we've had a couple of enforcement cases on exactly this issue. There was one in Queens. I mean, this is not recent, but it happened it was called very, very scandalous. It's called Mattress Gate. Right? It sounds worse than it is. Now I have to explain what it was. So there was a community board out by the airport, and there was a hotel chain that wanted to build another hotel out there, and so they gifted free sets of mattresses and box springs to a community board district manager and several community board members, and they accepted it, which is not smart. And you know why it's not smart? Who accepts mattresses from hotels? Right? I'm just editorializing a little bit there, but just, you know, I watch TV, you know, whatever. So don't do that. But also, those are gifts way over $50, and they're from somebody who's seeking something with the community board, and those people shouldn't have accepted that. And it was a little enforcement case, and then we all moved about our day, but it's kind of illustrative. On the Manhattan side, we had somebody a community board member who for 2 years accepted a free membership to a club. Maybe you've heard of this thing called Soho House. I had never heard of this club. Apparently, it features prominently in Sex and the City, a show I've never seen. But this was a membership that was worth thousands upon thousands of dollars, and she admitted in the disposition she got it just because she's a community board member, and there was a kind of a big fine there. So that's the thing there. And then maybe the last thing to hit is this. Let's say I'm a person with a professional practice. I'm a lawyer, I'm an architect, I'm a accountant, I'm an engineer. I'm a community board member. My client needs advocacy because they're applying for a zoning variance. And the question is, my client shows up, can I take my hat off and run out of the room and put my lawyer hat on and run back in the room and talk to the community board? No way. That's very, very confusing. Right? And I mean, it's crazy, right? Because eventually you're going to want to ask yourself questions. So now you got to run back and say, hey, counsel, let me ask you this. Yeah, what is it? I'll hook you up. What do you know, talking to yourself. When you're a community board member, you're always a community board member. You can't be somebody else's advocate, not your clients, etc. Now, if your firm wants to represent that person, you can get a waiver from us. They'll put up firewalls. That means you take no action on that matter, but you got to talk to us in legal advice to get the waiver. This is also true for my friend who works at the Department of Ed. If Department of Ed wants to make a presentation to this agency, they do not ask the community board who's also the DOE person to do it. It's somebody else who comes out from DOE and does that thing. Any questions? Go ahead, sir, and then I'll get to you. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, you have to use your mic, please.
Oh, yes, sorry.
And state,
Use the microphone, please. Yeah.
state your name. Thank you.
Hi, Chris Hanway. Regarding the 3Ds,
Yeah.
to be clear, an abstention is not the same as non-voting when we're talking about quorum and reaching
Yeah,
quorum.
okay, so here's my limited perspective on thinking about how to tabulate the votes is simply purely from a conflict of interest perspective. So I think that sometimes people invent other sort of categories of non-voting where you are eligible to vote, where it's like present but not voting, or not voting for cause, or abstaining, or whatever. That's very confusing in the record keeping. What I would say is a clean way to do it, if you're thinking about conflict of interest only, is if you don't have a conflict of interest, you've got three options: yes, no, abstain. If you have a conflict of interest, which you've got, and you've got to disclose that if you're going to participate in the discussions, right? Discuss, then don't vote. Then you're not allowed to abstain. That's only something that a person who's eligible to vote can do. So if they're ineligible to vote due to conflict of interest, you call it that, or maybe something that more trippingly flows off the tongue than that, but you don't call it abstention, because that now introduces like two different kinds of abstentions, and that could be confusing in the record keeping. Does that make sense? Okay, over there, my friend with the, yeah.
State your name, please.
Frank Fredericks, and my question has to do with the governance within the community board. Just
Okay.
sitting on a few nonprofit boards, I know that we also have conflict of interest as it pertains to electing our own leadership. Just knowing that we're all members of the public, somebody here could run for office. Am I barred from donating to their campaign, volunteering on their campaign? Or if I am interested in supporting somebody's campaign, if they're also running on the executive board, would I then need to disclose and or not vote? Like, how and what ways does these conflicts of interest affect how we nominate and vote for our leadership?
Okay, that's an excellent question. Now
Thank you.
We're kind of tiptoeing into areas where free speech has got to be a factor in some of this, and so some of the restrictions you got to tread lightly, because otherwise you're going to get sued on First Amendment grounds, when that is a preface for what I'm going to say now, right? So you can support any campaign you want. If you've got a fellow community board member that's running, you can support that campaign. If you've got somebody, the person who appointed you, if they're an elected official, you can support that campaign. You can write checks. You can volunteer for that campaign. You could probably work for that campaign. Although if you're working for the campaign, then you'd have to think if the campaign itself, the committee to re-elect the person, and they're employing you, if that committee had an issue before the board, then you got to use the 3Ds. But that's a sort of otherworldly thing, because I don't think campaigns generally do business directly with the committee board. So a little off topic there. Now let's go back on topic. So where you're right, where First Amendment freedoms are impacted slightly is in the two following instances. One is using community board time, like this meeting, or community board resources, like the copier or the website, to promote any kind of campaign to re-elect or elect anyone. So therefore, I don't use any kind of time or my position or resources to take I think, I'm a community board member, I think this person should be elected. No, that's a misuse of, because it's, that's an election activity, it's not a city activity. The second way is this. The board staff that works for CB1 are technically considered to be subordinate to these community board members. And there is a restriction that's been around for 35 years, and it was probably born out of some of the scandals in the mid-'80s. Think like, our friend Donald Maness or Stanley Friedman in the Bronx and some of the other things that happened in the third Koch administration. But what the law says is that no city superior may even request a subordinate any time to be involved in a campaign. So, for example, if I was a community board member, I could never ask Florence to volunteer or go to a rally or for a donation, not on the clock, not off the clock, not at the meeting, not away from the meeting. It's just a blanket prohibition. Those staffers that serve this board are considered your subordinates, so you don't ask them to be there. And those are really the two things to think about. Other than that, there's no I'm not associated with a campaign just because I hope that individual gets elected, is the shorter answer to the question, and therefore the 3Ds are not invoked in that case.
Thank you for clarifying, and that then would carry through if there was a financial interest as well. Let's say, once again, we're voting on our e-board and one of those people does business with my employer or something.
Yeah, so let's analyze that a little bit. So there's a fellow community board member, and I could imagine that I would have to use the 3Ds if I am associated with that community board member. So let's say I'm that community board member's lawyer, right? I'm working on their real estate closing. Then I'd have to say, like, hey, everybody, this community board member themselves is asking for a zoning variance. I know he's doing the 3Ds, or she's doing the 3Ds, but guess what? I'm doing the 3Ds too because I am their lawyer on this other matter. They're my client, so I got to do it there. So you could see, in that kind of instance, a 3Ds there, but that's what it would take, you know?
Thank you.
Yep. Good question. Yes, my friend in the back with the orange.
I've asked this every time, you never give me an answer.
Well, maybe there's a good reason for that.
Okay. When is quorum first established for the meeting? Oh, yeah. When is the meeting first when is quorum first established at a meeting? And does the quorum have to be maintained for the whole entire meeting?
Okay. So that is a question that unfortunately falls outside of the law that I am paid to know about. So dodge that bullet, and that's probably why I dodge it every year. I think that when you get into that question, you're going to have to look at your bylaws, and if it's not clear in your bylaws, then you're going to have to talk to the council over at the borough president's office and see if they can dig up what the answer is on that, because that issue, that answer is not contained within the body of Chapter 68, the Conflict of Interest Law. So that's why I've never been able to answer it, because I don't have the authority to. Any other questions?
We don't see any other questions, so thank you, Mr. Kipp, again,
Okay.
for your illuminating. I won't call it out.
Thank you. Call us when you need us, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. We're ready for our first presentation, and I'm speaking on behalf of Rosemary Provoroma, the chair of the Airport Committee. Sends her regret she's unable to introduce tonight's committee guests due to a medical issue. But it is my pleasure, therefore, to introduce Chanel Thomas and her team from the New York and New Jersey Port Authority. You ready, Chanel? Yes. Okay. Oh, I see Hirsch is here as well. We thought you wouldn't make it.
Good evening, everyone. Are y'all awake? Good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Chanel Thomas Henry with the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and the LaGuardia Redevelopment Program. I'm here with my colleagues, John Vinjanasa, Hirsch Parekh, as many of you know, Frank Watts, and Raquel Moss. So thank you to the board for inviting us today. We're going to do a presentation on LaGuardia ground access. Excellent. So just a brief agenda. We're going to go over the study overview, a summary of the transit options and evaluation factors that were looked at when the study was done, the expert panel recommendation, and the next steps where we are today. So just going back to 2021, Governor Hochul asked the Port Authority to thoroughly examine alternative mass transit solution for reducing traffic and increasing connectivity to LaGuardia Airport. So we built this beautiful new airport, and we wanted to make sure that it was easier for travelers to get to and from. So within this, the Port Authority committed to undertaking a thorough review of potential alternative mass transit options to LaGuardia Airport, work in close consultation with independent experts and stakeholders, complete its work as expeditiously as possible, consistent with the need for the review to be as thorough and rigorous as possible. Also at this time, we paused further action on the LaGuardia Air Train to Metz Willets Point project during the review. And the objective for all of this was to review a set of alternatives, including those identified by independent panel of experts and other stakeholders. With input from independent experts, the community, and other stakeholders, we evaluated each option. Just to go over those panelists, so there were a number of experts within the field, both locally, nationally, and internationally. Mike Brown, who is the former Commissioner of Transport for London and former Managing Director of Heathrow Airport. Jeanette Sadiq Khan, who is local, Principal of Bloomberg Associates and former Commissioner of New York City DOT. Philip A. Washington, who is the current CEO of Denver Airport and former CEO of LAX, as well as a number of independent consultants led by Bechtel. And these were engineering experts to see and evaluate the different alternatives. Also, we coordinated with a number of agencies throughout the city, most importantly with MTA throughout this entire process. So MTA was a key partner in the study and has been consulted throughout the entire process in the development of all subway and bus options, as well as intermodal transfers. In addition, the team consulted with Amtrak, Con Ed, the FAA, DEP, EDC, New York City and New York State DOT, Parks, and the New York Waterways. So public engagement was held last year. There was a questionnaire sent out to over 70 key stakeholders, including elected officials, community organizations, and stakeholder groups. We held 2 in-person workshops, one of which was actually in this room in March of last year, and then 10 independently run focus group sessions. So let's look at the transit options that were evaluated. There were a total of 14. Under each of these categories, there were 2 subway options, 5 fixed guideway options, 5 bus options, a ferry and shuttle service, and emerging technologies. So first, I'm gonna go more in detail on some of these options, but just to show you the map. So the 2 subway options that were looked at was to create a branch for the W line along the GCP from Astoria Boulevard. The second was an N and W extension along 31st Street to 19th Avenue. The summary of the fixed guideway options. So when you think of a fixed guideway, think of the air train that currently runs down the Van Wyck Expressway to JFK. So there were 2 looked at coming from the east, which were Metz Willards Point, as well as from Jamaica, and then 3 entering from the west, from Woodside, Astoria, and Jackson Heights. Summary of the bus options included improvements to existing routes. So currently we have a dedicated line in the Q70, or the LaGuardia Link, that stops at Roosevelt and 74th and 61st and Woodside into the airport, as well as the M60 that comes from Manhattan. And a new nonstop shuttle bus service from Astoria Boulevard Station all 3 of these would be nonstop shuttle service from these parts to the airport. Astoria Ditmar Station and a Northern Boulevard Station. Ferry options, so to provide access to the airport from the waterfront, we looked at 2 potential ferry locations. One, again, on the furthest west side of the airport, which is by Terminal A, the Marine Air Terminal, and then at Flushing Bay on the far east side of the airport, which is Terminal C, many of you may know as the Delta Terminal. So when looking at all 14 of these options, the panel of experts used these evaluation factors. 1, construction. What's the constructability of any of these options? Infrastructure impacts, capital cost, projected timeline to actually become operational. Transportation aspects, increased mass transit to LaGuardia, the throughput and capacity of those options, ridership and operating costs, Community and environmental aspects. Will any of these reduce greenhouse gas, local community impacts, equity, and the removal of cars from local roadways? And finally, any permanent or operational impacts that may occur. So going back to entering, as you remember, so we looked at options both entering LaGuardia from the east, so coming from like the Long Island area, Jamaica, as I mentioned earlier, or coming from the west. So what you're looking at here in the two options we discussed, the extension of the W down the Grand Central Parkway, as well as the extension of the N and W line to 19th Avenue. This right here, where you see the red and green lines, are what we are called runway, object-free, and runway safety areas. And what this means is the FAA prohibits any new construction, be it at grade or above grade, in this area for safety reasons for airport operations. So this eliminated those options entering from the west. Challenges of approaching from the west to go underground. So we looked at this as well. Since you cannot go at grade or above grade, what about going underground to get to the airport from the west? Challenges with this were there are major underground utility work, as well as, and even if that didn't become preventive, we didn't examine that to the point to find out if it was even still feasible. But it was also proven to potentially be cost prohibitive, estimating $1.1 to $3 billion in project costs just to do the tunneling. So it would be $1 to $3 billion estimated on top of what it would cost to actually construct the system. So the expert panel's recommendation was a one-way subway ride option from the west. But remember, due to severe constructability, again, the runway safety area and going underground, the utility issues, the expert panel decided or recommended implementing bus access expansions to benefit an estimated 4 to 5 million customers. This includes, again, going back to the Q70 bus line that currently exists. There will be transit signal priority along Roosevelt Avenue and Broadway to minimize travel time. Wayfinding and lighting improvements at Jackson Heights, Roosevelt, and 61st and Woodside. Further enhanced branding and signage to promote the improved service. A 1 mile long exclusive bus lane built on the shoulder of the northbound BQE between Northern Boulevard and Astoria Boulevard. This would be subject to federal, state, and local approvals. And then frequency improvements as needed in response to increased demand, as well as a new nonstop shuttle service between the airport and the last stop on the NW subway line at Astoria and at Astoria Ditmars Boulevard Station. This would serve all 3 terminals at LaGuardia, would include exclusive use of fully electric buses to eliminate noise and emissions. There would be dedicated bus lanes on 31st Street and 19th Avenue with transit signal priority to minimize travel time, improve facilities at the Astoria Boulevard Station to make it ADA accessible, and at the end of the line will ensure ease. By being at the end of the line, it would ensure ease of transit for customers going to and from. So this just goes into a little more detail about the improvements of each. Again, constructability for the Q70, not a whole lot of changes, just the dedicated bus line on the BQE. Expected cost as of today, 2023, is approximately $100 million. Scheduling timing would be about 2 to 3 years. And ridership, we anticipate, would be about 2.7 for this option. So for the Astoria Boulevard, which would be the new nonstop service, On neighborhood streets between Astoria, Ditmars, and the subway station, there will be dedicated bus lanes. So essentially converting the angled parking that exists on 31st Street now to construct a dedicated bus lanes, construction of new surface bus-only roadway through the Con Ed parking lot, and dedicated bus lanes which would run along 19th Avenue. Again, just breaking down some of those, what we discussed earlier, this route would be approximately 3 miles, cost approximately $340 million as of today. Timeline would be 4 to 5 years. Annual expected ridership, about 3 million passengers. So on June 22nd, 2023, the Port Authority Board of Commissioners approved $30 million for planning and preliminary design to improve mass transit access to LaGuardia. What this basically means is, in June, the board made an approval for us to study further both of these options. Where we are now in terms of next steps, so that review is underway. We're currently in the planning and preliminary design and ongoing community engagement, like this meeting this evening, and there will be other series of meetings just informing the community on what is going on and getting your feedback. And that is it.
Thank you, Chanel. Do any board members have any questions? Daniel Alberti.
Hi, Daniel.
Hello, hello? Hello, hello? Oh, there we are. You mentioned the 1 mile lane on the highway to allow the buses to get to the airport. And that's great, but what about going in the opposite direction? So after they're at the airport, how do they get back? Where is there going to be a dedicated lane for that?
I didn't mention, Hirsch, correct me if I'm wrong, when it rotates, so when it enters into the airport, oh no. Oh, one way, okay, my correction. It's going to be one way only, so one way coming in.
So then where will it be going when it comes back? What route will it take coming back to its original?
The existing route, which does take the BQE as it is currently exists, so it would enter the BQE right at, what is that stop? Off Astoria Boulevard, where the BQE and the GCP are, right by Garden Bay.
Right.
That entrance. So it would get back on the highway there and go over to Roosevelt Avenue, the Broadway.
You don't anticipate any traffic jams with that happening? Or they don't anticipate?
Well, they're still studying it. I don't know more than what currently exists, but they are still looking at that. So I would say TBD, unless Hirsch has more to add.
I mean, I'm thinking that if you had, for instance, say, 6 buses an hour going to the airport, those buses are going to have to go back the other way.
So Hirsch Pareca, everybody, Port Authority. So we had to look at the roadway availability on the BQE and the shoulder availability. So we have to make sure that if the current shoulder were to be converted into a bus lane, could a bus actually fit on that shoulder? So we know on the northbound direction, as Chanel pointed out, there is a 1 mile stretch of shoulder where it could accommodate a bus if the appropriate federal, state, and local approvals were received. In the other direction, there isn't that same shoulder availability to create that bus lane on the shoulder. And additionally, what we saw in terms of the travel time of the Q70, the place where it can get caught in traffic is also on the northbound going to the airport. In the other direction, it doesn't get, there isn't as much traffic that typically impacts the Q70.
Well, there may not be that much traffic now, but you're talking about starting this in 5 years.
Well, but again, that's why the first consideration was, is there shoulder availability to even look at this? And that's how we were able to look at the northbound only.
Yeah, I just see it as building an escalator to go upstairs and then having regular stairs to come down. It seems a little strange, but okay.
Tom Ryan.
Sorry. Tom Ryan. I live right there, so I can speak freely about this. On the, what you call northbound, there's the BQE, an exit ramp to the Astoria Boulevard, a local road that goes by Boulevard. So there's no shoulder there per se. That's one thing, so I don't know what you're calling a shoulder. Secondly, on the other side of the BQE, there's what's on the west side of the BQE, is parkland, and then there's a cemetery there. And there's also exit ramps. So how are you going to, I don't see you building a full-size bus lane on either side. So
So we're not building a new bus lane. What we're proposing is taking the existing shoulder for a 1 mile stretch of the BQE. It's east, but it's going north, right? Taking the existing shoulder and allowing buses, which they currently can't because it's a shoulder, allowing buses to use that shoulder as an exclusive bus lane. But again, because it's a shoulder, we would need to get approvals in order to do that.
right, but what I'm saying, there's no shoulder there.
There is a shoulder for about a mile stretch. Once the bus enters the BQE after it exits the Jackson Heights 74th Street station, there is a shoulder for about a mile.
We're talking about two different places then. I live right there, so you said before, so I think I got to look better into that. And second, my question is, you're basically making an enhanced, but why is it costing so much money? And you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars just in the study part of it.
So a lot of the expenses are going to come from the nonstop shuttle. This is the new nonstop shuttle. You would need to purchase a fleet of electric buses, which has some expense associated with it, as well as build a new bus depot for those electric buses. So that is a big part of the cost. There's also the accessibility improvements at the Ditmars Boulevard subway station that also will add cost. So those are the largest cost drivers for the shuttle bus. For the Q70, again, the largest cost driver would be converting the shoulder to a bus lane, but there's also things like transit signal priority, there's things like wayfinding and signage improvements as well. That would be part of that. But really the most of the cost is really, a large part of the cost is coming from the nonstop shuttle because of those new things you would have to do.
You're saying it's going to cost $30 million just to do the study and design. You know, you're talking about the infrastructure.
Correct. So right now we know we're going to be advancing these two options. And so to really get the planning and engineering in place, there will also need to be an environmental review that occurs. So all of that sort of will be in the lead up to the actual project and the environmental process.
Well, I'm doing my numbers in the head, and it seems like you spent an awful lot of money just to have an enhanced bus line. So that's questionable. So.
Thank you, Tom. Frank Fredericks.
Hi. Firstly, thank you for coming and sharing with us. I know this is a really big project, hard work, a lot of research has to happen here. I just think there's 3 community interests that I'm happy to highlight that might be missing from this. I'm hearing piano music, if anyone else is hearing that. Okay.
Somebody's cell phone.
So the first thing is that I recognize that, yeah, getting buses out will help fix this short term. But anyone who has to take the M60 work knows that, sure, average time might be faster, but it rains, and guess what? It's going to take you 40 extra minutes to get in, which means it's going to take 40 extra minutes to get out. Like, these roads get clogged. This might help us over the next 10 years, but 20, 30 years from now, this is not a sustainable solution. I think that's one concern. Second concern is that nothing you're demonstrating here actually is going to benefit anyone who lives here getting to and from the airport or elsewhere. Like, these are all passing through us, but we're basically, you're jamming our streets and we're not getting any infrastructure investment, right? Versus if you extend the train and you put stations along there, guess what? That's going to open up our community to be able to commute more easily, et cetera. So it would be helpful to think in what ways can we actually, there's secondary positive effects that come from some of these, and we would love for those to be taken into account. And just thirdly, as somebody who's raising, 3 kids in this neighborhood, we already get enough pollution from the airplanes. Like, it would be great to not have more buses driving down our streets. It would be great to have a train underneath, the ground where it's not spitting all of that into the air around us. In particular, they call this part of a Queens pollution alley. We've got the airport, we've got all these freeways, and we also have the power stations. So the environmental factor is another thing that's going to be a concern for us. So I'm not saying these are problems, I'm just saying these are concerns from the community, and I hope when you're looking at this holistically, these are taken into account, because we know the AirTran took over $2 billion, and if it costs us $2 billion to breathe cleaner air and have less polluted roads, less busy roads, that's a pretty big win for us, especially if we get connected to the rest of the city better as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment.
Thank you, Frank. Richard Guzami.
How you doing? A couple questions. First of all, you didn't really address specifically coming out of the east in terms of the Long Island, Jamaica areas. I've always advocated for Jamaica as being a hub and extension of the AirTran, because what we need, and we need to remember, this is transport for the whole tri-state. This is not specific to Western Queens. Western Queens can get there easily enough on its own, even just through car shares and things like that. We're close to this airport. What we need to do is be able to get as many subways as possible into hopefully some sort of a line like an AirTran. And by going over the Jamaica hub, you create transport between the different airports. It creates more options for passengers. You've got the Long Island Railroad right coming in there because it's coming right into Jamaica, which brings Long Island into the process. Plus, the N line itself does not really directly hit any of the major hubs. It doesn't go to Grand Central specifically. It doesn't go to a Penn Station. So the N line itself, out of all the lines, is going to be the most difficult for anybody to carry luggage on. If you go to 59th Street on the N line, you've got to go up 2 or 3 floors just to switch trains. So the whole thing to me, from the concept, the holistic concept, it just really doesn't make sense to me. Also, if you do go the route of the shuttle out of Ditmars and 31st, would you ever consider creating a stop there? Because we're going to have a major employment hub being developed around 19th, around Lester Creek, where we've got Wildflower Studios going in, we have sanitation going in, and we have the existing Steinway factory. So is there also a possibility where we could enhance that transit if we in fact did have to go the route of the shuttle? Those are my questions.
So a couple of things, and I think your question, Richard, also relates to the comments from you. So as we looked at the subway options, right? We looked at connecting the subway to the airport from the west. And Chanel went over the challenges that exist that would prevent that from happening. So we looked at going above ground, at ground level, and below ground. And none of those, based on the very comprehensive analysis that was done, were feasible. So that eliminated any option coming from the west in terms of subways or fixed guideways or things like that. In terms of connecting to Jamaica or things like that, again, now that the previous LaGuardia AirTran to Metz Willets Point has been canceled entirely, what we have now are these bus options to supplement what is currently the existing public transportation to get to LaGuardia, right? So we are looking to offer as many mass transit options to airport customers and airport employees to get to and from the airport. And so with the existing bus service, plus the enhancements to the Q70, plus this new shuttle service, we do anticipate adding a few million people on a yearly basis to these bus services. And then what was your second question? Oh, a stop where the Wildflower Studio is supposed to be built, right? So,
Sanitation
Right.
and also Steinway.
so I think I have a two-part answer to that question, right? First is, as the Port Authority, we are not, we operate facilities like airports, right? And it is our mission to help people get to the airports, from the airports, to make sure the airports are operational, that they're serving customers that use the airports, et cetera. So that is how we looked at this study, is trying to improve access to and from the airport. Now, is there a possibility that there could be a stop added at that location you mentioned? I don't know. I think it's unlikely because, again, we are not the mass transit service provider for the region, right? It's this amalgamation of different transit agencies that handle these different services around in the city, right? We have the Port Authority, we have the MTA, you have City DOT, you have things like that, right? So we looked at this study, and the way that the study looked at these options was improving access to and from the airport and getting people out of cars and onto mass transit to and from the airport. And that was what the study showed, and that's what we're trying to improve.
Well, okay, I guess on the positive side, if we do go with the shuttle buses, it's not a major infrastructure cost. So down the road, when we find, in fact, that we do need the help for the whole area, and we do need a holistic approach, building these lines might be a good option at that point.
Go ahead, Thomas.
Thank you.
Can you announce your name, please?
Certainly. Thomas Wright. Hi, Hirsch. How are you? I have participated in a lot of Willits Points discussions as well, and transportation always comes up about what potential developments they have there and how people will be able to access that, how the community will be able to access the things in Willits Point. And they're coming up with many ideas and tossing out the same thing: buses, shuttles, subways, extra stops, problems with 7 train. And I know that this is particularly your organization, Port Authority, looking at this, but is there a conversation between both groups? And because if we're talking about 5 years and we're looking at development of both the airport and the Willits Point area, which, I mean, they're also talking about developing that waterfront there. Is there a conversation that's being had between both groups? And I see your smile, so it must be. There must be something there.
No, I was just going to say, I was smiling because I was kind of laughing inside. That's what was studied originally. So when airport construction first started in the redevelopment, the idea was to do, go back to a fixed skyway from the airport, so the furthest east terminal, which is Delta, to Willits Point. And I do think a lot of the developers within that area were actually happy that that would have come. But again, once we halted that at the governor's request and this expert panel was put together, that was taken off the table.
I see. So these are really happening kind of in a vacuum, despite the fact that they're very, very close in the traffic. I mean, I just recently went to a tennis game, and I had no idea it would take me so long to drive from So I missed it. I turned around and went home. It was ridiculous.
Be prepared for the day when there's a soccer game, a tennis game, and a Mets game all at the same time.
I'll never make it to the airport.
Thankfully, it's not in Community Board 1, right? But to Chanel's point, I mean, there was extensive coordination with a number of stakeholders, both public and private. You know, we listed the public stakeholders, but we had a number of private entities that also participated in the process, shared their feedback, shared their input. And as we mentioned, MTA was a key partner in this entire process because they run the lifeblood in terms of the subway, buses, and commuter rails that serve the city. So there was extensive coordination, but again, based on the direction that we were given and based on the recommendations of the panel that was convened, the Willits Point option was taken off the table. And so looking at, and since the subway options were also infeasible based on the challenges we described, really, we had to look at what was the best way remaining that can still effectively get people out of cars onto mass transit. And so really, it's really improving the bus service and expanding the bus service to the airport.
Thank you.
Rod Townsend.
Thank you for your presentation. This is Red Townsend. Two questions. Was the ferry option thrown out? I missed the discussion of that. And what was the reasoning? I forgot.
So a number of reasons, and Hirsch can chime in if I missed one. So with the ferry option, again, part of the study was travel time. So with that not being a dependable source, the ferry, from a travel time perspective, also with the ferry, you would, again, have to get passengers from the ferry, put them on a shuttle bus to actually get them to one of the terminals. So it became...
Cool. I think I missed that. Second question.
Sorry, and there was also one other issue, which was throughput, right? You could only fit a certain number of people on a ferry, and they can only run so often, right? So, buses, you can fit typically more people, and they can run more frequently, right? So one of the evaluation criteria that we went over was throughput, right? How many people can you move, and how quickly can you move them? And ferries, just by virtue of what they are, it's not as effective in terms of passenger throughput as things like a bus.
Thank you. And then follow-up question. What is the travel time for a yellow cab from LGA to Midtown Manhattan?
Rush hour? Or normal day?
I'm a busy business executive, and I'm in town for a meeting, and I arrived at 7 a.m.
To go to Midtown?
Correct.
Oh, 30... 7 a.m., roughly 35 to 40 minutes.
So that does not compete with these options.
No. Say that again? Not at 7. If you go up to 8 o'clock, definitely an hour.
Okay, thank
7,
you.
you make, yeah.
Thank you. Yuma.
Hugh Ma, thank you for coming. Great presentation. I have two questions. First question is on the impact on the NW. What is the projected impact on the ridership, and will Port Authority be funding frequency increases given that impact?
So this is where the MTA's input was key in this process, right? Because the MTA's ridership analysis, and this is looking at pre-COVID, right? Because obviously during COVID, ridership kind of collapsed, right? But pre-COVID, the MTA, based on their ridership analysis and based on our ridership analysis for these options, they determined that there was capacity within the existing service provided on the N&W that could accommodate this level of potential increase in passengers on the NW. So that we're not anticipating frequency improvements on the NW, and if there would need to be frequency improvements, that would certainly be part of the MTA's responsibility as they operate the subway service. But right now we are not, based on existing capacity and the projected ridership, there does not appear to be a need to increase frequency.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Second part of my question, would like to know more about the decision to use electric buses, which, as far as I know, have been unproven to be used at scale, especially at cold climates. So given the timeline of 4 or 5 years, because of this choice to use electric buses, that's 4 or 5 years of cars that we are not taking off the road that we could have been taken off earlier if we used more conventional buses. So we'd love to know that decision, especially because 5 years is a long time from now. Thank you.
So I think this goes back to a previous comment. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, sir. I didn't forget your name, but Frank. So Frank made a comment about emissions in the community, and in terms of making sure that environmentally we would have the impact would be minimal. The use of electric buses to reduce the emissions that would come from those buses impacting the community was an important consideration. And so we know that bus fleets across the region and across the country are slowly transitioning from diesel to hybrid to electric. But again, it was important for us to make sure that in terms of emissions that would impact the community, especially in the corridor that we're talking about, that currently would run across 19th, where there isn't significant bus activity currently. By adding that bus service, we want to make sure we were minimizing the emissions impact in that corridor. And so that's why electric buses was the decision.
Diane Lee Manji.
Hi, thank you. I want to clarify. Your NW, your shuttle bus from NW means that you have access to the LGA, but not from. Is that right?
No, it'll be bi-directional. You can
Okay,
go in
and
both
is there one
directions.
that's only one direction?
No.
Okay. I guess I just want to highlight something that has already been said, which is most of us, I travel a lot to LaGuardia, and if I had an option that was mass transit and that I knew how long it was going to take me, I would take it, right? But if you have a bus that you don't know what is going to happen on the road, it's not going to help get people off the road, right? Because I don't have an option that's reliable. If I think it's going to take me 45 minutes versus an Uber that's going to take me 13 minutes, I mean, busy people, you know, a lot of stuff going on, and we want that reliability. And I think that both of these bus options don't give that reliability for travelers, which is important. But more importantly, I think, and troubling to me, is that both of these areas, Roosevelt Avenue and 31st Street, are already incredibly heavily trafficked in cars, in people. I mean, we all live around there. Roosevelt Avenue is a nightmare to drive in. We already have a lot of buses on that avenue, so this just does not seem helpful. It seems like a Band-Aid and like something you're offering the community that says, oh, look, we're doing something, but it's not really a long-term solution to a really, really big problem.
So the Q70 is an existing route, so we're not adding bus service to the Roosevelt-Jackson Heights area. That's an existing route, the LaGuardia Link, as it's also known as. We're just, with some of these improvements, we are trying to make the travel time more predictable and reliable and reduce the travel time. So that's what we're doing with the Q70 with these improvements that Chanel described. With the new nonstop shuttle service, that's why the comment about travel time and reliability, that's also why it's important that we're looking to build in dedicated bus lanes to ensure that the buses don't get caught in normal traffic, and so that they have a straight and direct and easy path to get from the subway station to the airport and vice versa. So we agree about the issue of reliability and travel time, and that's what we're trying to really address with some of these dedicated bus lanes.
I just want to reiterate something that one of my colleagues already said, which is that these buses in the communities where we live on that 31st, that end line of Astoria Ditmars is not a helpful, I mean, I don't know anybody, raise your hand if you think this is a helpful thing for like our everyday life, but I think most people would say it's not.
Well, I think it's also important to just, I think, note, you know, many people that live in this part of Queens don't really, they do have, just by virtue of how close to you live to the airport, you have multiple options to get there. What we're trying to do is get people that would normally take a taxi or an Uber or a Lyft or something like that from Manhattan in particular, because we know that nearly half of the customers that fly out of LaGuardia come from Manhattan. So what we're trying to do is take those vehicles that currently come from Manhattan and to the airport and try to get those people out of those vehicles onto mass transit by giving them even more options beyond what currently exists.
Kathleen Warnock. I'm sorry. Rosemary Yelchin. I got my names confused. Thank you.
I'm just, and pardon me if I missed it, is there any projected revenue so far from this? Like, what are you going to bring in? If all of this money is being spent, I'm just curious if there's anything like potential costs for a shuttle, potential costs for the other options. What does that look like?
So
are there
the cost? Well, you're asking about cost or revenue?
No, revenue.
So revenue has not been decided yet because that's a function of, or projected yet rather, because that's a function of ridership, which we have projected ridership, but we're going to continue refining those projections, and then a function of what the fare policy is for the new shuttle service. which again has not been decided. The Q70 is an existing service, so whatever, but it is free, right? There's no fair charge on the Q70, and so that's sort of a wash.
And I just have one more comment. So I'm a social worker by day, but a tour guide by my side hustle, and I would have a really difficult time getting my tourists onto mass transit coming into the city, especially for the first time. Just want to make that comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead, Amin.
Thank you for your presentation. This is Amin Mehdi. I believe that the solution that you are giving and helping us is not going to be helping us. It's not going to be effective because people, whoever is taking the taxi, they have a couple of luggage. So they're going to take the luggage and go to the bus again. They're coming here and go up, and it's not easy to go up to the subway station on the 31st Street like Ditmars. It's going to be harder. So if people are going to be still, and the buses, you are giving more buses, you're making more traffic in the street. So if you could just go for that one, that Airbus or a train extension to the LaGuardia, that's going to be the best solution. Because from there it's going to be. I don't know why they didn't pick that solution, because that's the perfect one. Like in the JFK, we have the air train. So I believe that's the good solution, and it is taking care of the environment, traffic, and everything. And it's very comfortable. It's going to be effective. People will take it, and people will go from there. Thank you.
So two things. With the transfer at the end of the NW line at the Ditmars Astoria station, there will be upgrades to that station to, again, make them ADA accessible, as well as make it easier for those passengers with luggage to go up and down at that location. So those improvements are being done. And then again, with the subway options, coming from the west, again from Manhattan, so any option on the W, which would be a branch from Astoria Boulevard to the GCP, or 31st Street to 19th Avenue. Because of this restricted area, and again, this is a federal, we can't build anything here, so that option isn't viable.
Tenzin.
So that mass transit, that bus you're giving is going to be free for all riders from the airport to the subway?
So we don't know that yet. Currently, though, the Q70 line that exists, that comes from Roosevelt and 74th and 61st and Woodside, are free.
The one which is going to the Manhattan, is that free?
Which one going to Manhattan?
I believe M60.
Oh, the M60. No, it's not.
So that is going to be the current solution, that if you could make that free from the LaGuardia to the Ditmas Boulevard, so you could put that recommendation, so people will know that it's free, and let's go and get the subway from there. So it will be more like reduce the traffic in the street.
So that would be an MTA thing with the with that service again. Okay.
Go ahead. Did you guys talk about that matter with them, with the MTA?
No.
The DOT?
No.
Did you
And
guys
part of the thing with the free Q70, the Q70 link currently services stops at those two train stations and goes straight to the airport and back again. Whereas the M60 makes several stops along the way so that's not just a dedicated traveler bus, whereas the Q70 is.
Yeah, so but instead of giving the more buses to this line, like this way that coming to the Manhattan from the Triborough, if you could just put one free shuttle from LaGuardia to Ditmars Boulevard, so people will know that they are getting the train, after this bus. So it's going to be making little impact on the traffic, I would believe.
So I was going to say, the new bus service would connect at the NW. So the new bus service would go from the subway on this side in Astoria straight to the airport, then back again. So that, yes.
Jensen.
Oh, thank you. I just want to make a comment. So I take Q70 and M60 because I live 10 minutes away. I love it. So I think it's very convenient. So, but my only concern is these new buses, the new nonstop. I think there's a genuine concern, like the impact on traffic. So it'll be interesting to see once you do the thorough kind of the research. So it'll be interesting. But I just want to say that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Ramirez. Martinez. Yeah. Mike.
So my question or comment was it explored to look into extending another station after Astoria did more to 19th Avenue and then maybe doing a shuttle bus from there?
So you're saying, just go back right here, so you're saying extend the NW one stop, and then, I mean, the subway, you can't come in from the west. Any location west of the airport could not, let's go to the subway slide. No, the subway option slide. So you're saying extend the subway one stop and then build a bus from that stop to the airport? I mean, that's effectively the same thing, right? Instead of saying you have a bus from the Ditmar stop, you would have the bus from, for example, a new 19th Avenue stop, right? It's almost the same thing. So, right. So, I mean, the other factor here is, one of the things we looked at in the evaluation criteria is, let's go back to the evaluation criteria slide. So there was a number of different factors, right? Capital cost, operating cost were important as well, right? We all know, you've all heard the cost of extending subways, creating new subways. That cost would be incredible, right? If folks are concerned about the $500 million that's being estimated for these options, to extend the subway even one stop, I couldn't even imagine how much that would cost. But also, extending the subway is not a Port Authority function, right? That would need to be an MTA function as well. So extending this with the subway one stop was not part of the analysis in this process.
Brian, go ahead, please. Brian Hunt.
Okay. Thank you guys for your presentation. Of the transportation options being presented, does the study show one clear winner as far as ridership goes, as far as capacity or efficiency, getting to and from the airport in conjunction or coordination with, flight times and scheduling at LaGuardia? In other words, like the capacity of the buses would be more efficient than like you had mentioned the ferries and stuff like that. Is there one that kind of stands out as a better option?
So again, the best option of those to that point was one of the subway options. But again, for constructability and the runway safety zone, they were eliminated. So the subway options, be it the extension of the W down Astoria or the extension of the N and W to 19th Avenue, were the preferred, but not constructed.
Thank you.
And I think that's why it's important. I think a lot of folks sort of think about, sometimes just one of these factors, right, or a few of these factors, right? But that's why it was important that we looked at every single factor, right? Because while one factor may have one option come out on top, another factor may negate that outcome, right? So you have to look at it holistically and make sure that there's a realistic option that can actually be built or executed, right? And so, not that I would, recommend or ask anyone here to read a 400-page report, because that was the length of the report. But if you'd like to read the executive summary, that's only about 10 or 12 pages and sort of, goes into this at a high level. We can send that link to the board, and if they can send it out to the full board, happy to do that.
That's a great idea. Adam Fisher-Cox.
Hi. I don't want to belabor repeating other points, but I do just want to say, I agree with some points that this feels very siloed and maybe short-term, and I think that's a function of Port Authority and MTA being separate. I understand that. It does feel a bit of a shame, but I guess in terms of what you guys can control, I'm curious about, have there been discussions of fare policy? I think one thing about the JFK AirTrain is the price for a train that nobody is taking only that train. They're connecting to MTA, they're connecting to Long Island Railroad, and it costs upwards of $8 just to ride the train between some terminals. And I think that quickly becomes a function that pushes people to cars, which a Lyft may not be that much more, especially if you're a family or an Uber. So I'm wondering, is that something that you've thought about here? Is there a risk that this bus also costs $8? Considering people were making a transfer, is there consideration just making it free? Has that been a conversation?
Fare policy has not been decided on yet, and that would come down the road. So the answer to your question is we have not had that discussion about fare for the new shuttle service yet.
Well, perhaps we could be part of that conversation. Thank you. Dan Aliberti.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was mention that there will be a bus depot for the buses going from the Ditmar station to the airport. Where will that bus depot be? How large will it be? Will there be a parking lot associated with it for the drivers of those buses? Can you address the depot?
So, are you familiar with Ingram's Mountain?
Yes.
Okay, so that's where the bus depot will be. There is a possibility of parking there. We don't know yet, but that's where the bus depot will be. There is parking there currently. We use the parking lot and have for long-term
I'm
parking.
familiar. I think it's like 500 cars or something up there.
Something like that, give or take.
It's huge. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Now, Elizabeth Evian, and then Jean Marie, and we have to move this presentation along. So, Elizabeth?
Yes. I just wanted to make a comment about what you said with the N-train passengers, et cetera. We recently had a rezoning where the EIS determined that when this 700 units are constructed in the area, there will be a deficiency of 3 to 4 subway runs during the rush hour period because of the number of people that would be generated from that project. So we're, and this doesn't even mention all of the as of right development that's going on in the neighborhood. So my question is, what are the number of passengers you're projecting for this? What are you doing with MTA and Transit Authority in terms of getting the signalization done and all of the other things we need to increase that? I also have a question. You said, I want to know the number of buses that are projected to be used and stationed under the subway and running back and forth. You had mentioned about it being, I assume it's 19th Avenue that's bi-directional. Is that the street that you're talking about? They're going to go there and then come back, turn around in the airport and come around 19th Avenue back to 30, back to Ditmars. I just want to, we were talking at the Land Use Committee recently about enhancing 19th Avenue as a pedestrian approach to the new waterfront that's going to be constructed along Leicester Creek. Cleanup and a waterfront access area right near the studios that are going up over there. So, there's you guys have a little kink in that plan that we were talking about. So, and also, did you have any kind of improvements for the M60 line that exists now, which is it works for me. So if you could focus on those, I'll remind you when you need them, if you need it.
So the place where we are right now is we just had our board approve a few months ago the $30 million to begin the design and planning work for these bus options and the improvements and expansions that we spoke about. Part of that work will also be looking at the environmental review, what will be required for these bus options, right? And that environmental review will need to take into consideration other projects in the vicinity that may have an impact on this project, right? So it's called cumulative impacts, basically, right? If you mentioned a building of 700 units going up, right? That type of project would be looked at as part of an environmental review to say, okay, with this project, how would that impact these bus options? So we are at the beginning stages so let me say this. The report that got us to this point is finished, right? The report that recommended these two options has been completed. We are now taking the recommendations that came out of that report and really doing the work that needs to happen to actually implement those recommendations, right? So we need to do further planning, further engineering, further design to make sure that we're taking into account all of these issues, right? the cost, for example, that Chanel referenced for both of these, that was based on when the report was completed. So that was at the end of 2022. We all know what's happened with inflation since the end of 2022. So it's very possible that those costs may increase based on the further design and engineering and planning that we are doing. But that's what this process is now has started and is going to get us to. So those issues you mentioned would all be considered as part of environmental review and things like that. With regards to the M60, improvements to the M60 was one of the options that we looked at. And ultimately, the recommendation came out that improvements to the Q70 plus this new shuttle bus were the pathway forward.
So nothing to the M60? No improvements?
Not from the Port Authority, no.
Okay. Projected passengers and number of buses, do you have that information? Or
Number
is that EIS?
The number of buses will be based on ridership and things like that. So the ridership that we projected right now was based on the preliminary engineering that was done for this report. There will be further engineering that will be done as this design and planning process moves forward. And we'll be refining the projected ridership, we'll be refining the projected cost, we'll be looking at how we can mitigate some of the community impacts that were identified during the previous analysis. So all of that is sort of still to come, including number of buses and all of that as well.
What's the timeline for the EIS?
Again, we are not, whether it's an EIS or an EA, that's still to be determined as well. So we are at the beginning of the process for these two options, right? So what we are here, so we'll be back, right, to share more about what's happening, what the analysis has shown, and when the environmental review needs to commence and things like that, right? So I just want to sort of, I think, put that out there that this is not the end of the process for these two options, right? The report that got us to here is completed, and now we're beginning the work to advance and implement these options. And there's a process ahead of us for that.
Thank you. Last question, Jean Marie.
Our subway system here in Queens, Astoria, Long Island City, we're already overwhelmed. Fortunately, I don't have to take that anymore. But from friends of mine, they say they have to wait on the platforms for extended periods of time because they refaced it. It looks lovely, but they did nothing to actually improve the service. And now you're going to have people coming, not only just the people themselves, but with luggage. That's going to take up more space, and I find it to be a big, a problem for our community. And also, I'm going to assume the shuttle buses, are they going to have storage areas for the luggage?
Yes.
Oh, they will?
Yes.
Okay. But it's not going to help our subway system, which is going to, and the development around here is overwhelming now. They're building everywhere high up. All these people, they depend on the mass transit. And it's nice that you want to help other people in other areas, but it's going to really impact our community. And I don't see us getting any advantage to it. So that's my comment.
With that final comment, Hirsch, thank you so much for your presentation. This is a non-voting item, as you know, it was informational only.
I'm sorry, Marie, I know you mentioned this, but we just also, I know she's not here. We want to thank Rosemary for working with us to get us to this point. She's been very helpful in helping with feedback from the community and helping us present today. So thank you to Rosemary Poveromo as well.
And you got more feedback tonight. Yes, indeed. Chanel has an announcement, I believe.
Yes, I'm just going to bring my colleague, Raquel Moss, up to make an announcement about a program we have coming up.
Hi, yes, good evening, everyone. I'm not going to be before you very quick, very long. The Port Authority Police Department is having a Citizens Academy, and that will be on October 10th, October 12th, October 17th, and October 19th. This will be in New Jersey at the Patsy, which is the location, the Port Authority Technical Center, which is a location for them to do their police academy. They're doing this just to bridge the gap between Port Authority Police and the community in which it serves. So for those who are interested in attending, you are welcome to send me an email. You're welcome to write it down. My email address is rmoss, exactly, RMOSS at PANYNJ.gov. For anyone who is interested, please let me know by the end of this week. We will try to send out email information to you all, but once again, it's October 10th, October 12th, October 17th, and October 19th in Jersey City. At our Patsy building, and they're just bridging the gap between the Port Authority Police Department and the neighborhoods in which Port Authority serves in any capacity, whether it be airport or bridges and tunnels area, okay? So once again, the email address is rmoss@PANYNJ.gov. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Public hearing items, 6103 Norton Boulevard variance, 171 BZ. Who's presenting, please? And you are? Need a mic.
Please use the microphone.
All right. While we're setting up, I'll introduce myself, and I can just briefly go over the project. Then we'll have some visuals. I'll be closer to my face. All right. So my name is Michael Nackmius. I'm an attorney at Nackmius Law Firm, and I'm going to be presenting for the BSA application for 6103 Northern Boulevard. It's calendar number 171BZ. So just to give a short summary, this is currently an auto dealership and a car repair service that's located on the corner of Northern Boulevard and 61st Street. It's on the northeast corner. And the application is to extend the term of the existing variance. It's in an R5 zoning district, so there's a variance on this particular lot to allow, okay, you can see it here. So this is our lot right here. This is our site. So there's a variance on this lot because it's an R5 and you're not allowed to have use group 16, auto repair, and car sales. We also want to amend the previously approved variance to get rid of the repair shop. So essentially, put this down. We want to get rid of the repair shop and only have a car dealership. So what's interesting about the application is this, if you can go up here, this line right here pretty much divides the block from an R5 district on one side where the site is and an M1 district. So if this M district continued along Northern Boulevard, we wouldn't have to be here. Now, the occupant that's going to be at the car dealership is North Star Kia. And they run a very good operation, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But there's a building here that also had a service facility that is going to be part of the new building, if it's approved, that's going to be on the lot that's subject to the variance. So it's going to be one big car dealership, and then some cars that are going to be parked on the site just the way they are now. And the reason that we're not going back, that we don't have to go to the BSA or ask for anyone's approval to modify this site, which is also going to be North Star Kia, is because it's more than 50% in the manufacturing district already. So in other words, they can do whatever they want on this district. You can have whatever manufacturing use you want here. But here in the R5, you need to ask for permission to make any changes or to continue to have manufacturing. So let's just go through some photographs of what the site looks like now. This is coming down 61st Street. And you'll see this iron fence, roll down gates. North Star Kia, he operates different dealerships around. He doesn't like the gates. So he's going to remove all the fencing that's along 61st Street, which in his words, it looks like, you're kind of locked up or something. So he's going to open up that space. As you go, so all this fencing will be removed, and it's just a little bit more of the site. You keep going. Over here, there's a residence that abuts the existing property. So we're proposing to put an 8-foot fence, 100% opaque. So there's a separation between the residential and the car dealership. So we'll just keep going. This is another view from 61st Street. Again, propose to remove all of this fencing along here and just have an open lot. Go down. Okay, so before was a view from Northern Boulevard, but you can see it. So you have Shaji Motors. Can you go to the next slide? And then, yeah, no, we can kind of see it over here. But there's another place called Frontier. And then there's another facility after that, right here. So the issue, the feedback that I got from the community is that these facilities, really the Frontier Auto Repair, they're creating a parking issue on the street. They're putting vehicles that are there for repairs, and they're taking up parking spaces. If we have a car dealership, if the application is approved, the car dealership is there, you eliminate these businesses from putting their service vehicles there, and Kia, obviously, they promised they're not going to be putting, dead cars and cars for sale, taking up the parking spots. Now, one of the issues that came up at the Land Use Committee was what's going to happen to these businesses? When are they going to end their leases? What's going to happen? So everybody's basically bought out at this point. All of the leases are terminated. They're going to be moving. So these businesses are going to close, but Kia has taken in the service workers, the mechanics, and brought them to their facility. Now, Kia has a 20,000 square foot facility. I have the exact address. It's on 5301 and 5315 37th Avenue. It's a huge facility. So any cars that would be operating at the Kia dealership, they need service, they're going to go to 37th Avenue. And then you have the mechanics there. They've been offered jobs to work at the Kia service repair. So this is what it looks like now. This is the repair shop, and then you have 16 parking spaces. There's a little bit of an extension of the building that kind of comes out, and that's going to be demolished. So part of the application is to demolish this part and just kind of square off the building. So it's actually going to be smaller. So if you can go through, this is just, again, what it looks like now. And this is, again, the existing plan, so let's keep going until we get to the proposed. Okay. This is what it would look like if it's approved. So rendering. The only thing in the corner where you see the looks like fencing, that's not going to be there. We confirm that there's no fencing. It's the only thing inaccurate about the rendering. But this here is really our side of the building where the variance is. This side, which is almost actually 80% complete with construction, is not part of the variance. And there's going to be a doorway between the two buildings if it's approved. So this is the proposed. This is the proposed building. You see in the top left over there, to demolish it, and they want to increase it to 19 parking spaces because they're going to have a little bit more space on the lot to park the cars. Yeah, this is just the demo plan. And then this is what the first floor would look like. You have some offices, administrative staff, areas, handicap accessible bathrooms. There's a loading door to bring vehicles inside the glass. And then you have permeable concrete asphalt driveway that's going to be repaved. And then a couple of doorways, like I said, into the adjacent building, which isn't subject to the application. The rest is just plans, is kind of what it would look like from an elevation point of view. Now, the one major thing about the application that's a little technical is that the term of the variance expired in 2008. So we're asking for a 20-year term, which is something that we would never do, but we have to go we have to take the 20-year term from 2008, which means that it would expire in 2028. And in other words, if this is approved, we'd be back here in 5 years asking you for permission again to continue to operate, and likely would ask for a 10-year term, which is much more reasonable. And I spoke to Kia, and they have a 20-year lease. So they intend to be there, be good tenants. And the other issue that came up was, what took so long? Why did it expire in 2008, and why are we here in 2023, almost 15 years later? So the story is that in 2004, somebody bought this property, and they didn't know that there was a variance attached to the property. They had tenants. They came in. They were just operating. And then Kia came in and approached the owner, and they said, I want to come in and I want to lease the space. So they hired the architect. The architect did some research in order to renovate the property, and that's when everybody discovered there's a variance on this site. But once they found there was a variance, they said, all right, obviously we have to file an application. We have to go in front of the community board and ask for permission to extend the term of the variance. So if it's approved, again, we would have an extension of the term through 2028, then we would be back here again, and there wouldn't be any changes at that point. The construction after approval shouldn't take more than 6 to 8 months between the permitting process, and it's really just a minor demolition in the back. Everything would be obviously with licensed contractors, and then the interior modifications. So that's the application, and I don't really have anything else to add, but I can open up to questions.
Tom, excuse me, one moment. I'm going to ask Elizabeth if the committee had any questions.
Yeah, well, yes, we have questions.
Thank you.
Could you clarify one thing for me? I understand, and I think the committee understands, that the sales, the new showroom is going to extend into the M11 district. But you mentioned that Frontier, just clarify, will Frontier remain an auto repair shop next to it?
No. There's no more auto repair. Basically, this extends all the way to the 7-Eleven. So the whole block front, from where the 7-Eleven is down to 61st Street, is going to be a Kia dealership.
So your proposed conditions plans don't show what you're saying?
Because
They don't show it as one building?
Well, if you go back, if you show the proposed conditions, you'll see that there's the brick building that's here that's not part of the application. Because we're only asking for that site that's in the R5. The site that's in the M1 isn't part of the application, so we really wouldn't show it on the plans besides kind of a placeholder.
I understand, but the concern of the community was that there not be any more repair shops there, and the plan, though it's not part of the variance, shows it still as a repair. So it's it's something that will be watched.
Okay.
Let's see. You talked about, I guess I just want, Madam Chair, is it okay to give a summary? Because I don't think that the board got the report from
Go ahead,
the committee.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
Oh, you have it? Okay.
Oh, they did get it.
Okay. We had a couple issues which the applicant did come back with information about with respect to the permeability of the concrete or whatever they were going to be using in the parking area, the open area, and they said it's going to be porous asphalt. The timeline for the demolition and the construction and relocation of the tenants was a concern. And on Lot 50, we were told that 80% of the building that's going to be part of the new development is already under construction and complete. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you mentioned about the status of the tenants. The length of the lease, 20 years, was explained with respect to the term that they're asking, which would end in 2028 because it's retroactive to 2008 when it lapsed. We asked for a buffer, a landscape buffer, between the lot line, where next to the residential lot line, north of Northern Boulevard. And the response we got was that, and also tree planting along 61st Street. And the response we got was that there will be trees planted, and they're with respect to what's shown on the plan. And I don't see any trees on the plan except an old tree that is on somebody's yard in the back, or maybe part of the.
The plan wasn't updated for the
Okay.
presentation.
What worries me is that you state in the response that no trees are required. So that's a cue, to for a condition or whatever. You verified the number of parking spaces and understand that there are 3 more that are allowed now, and you're requesting that those be approved. And I understand the building is smaller, so you have more room to park or store vehicles. With respect to, let's see, there are some issues that we didn't discuss, but which are relevant to having a situation with the residents and a facility like this, and that has to do also with lighting and signage. So I was going to ask if there could be a condition put there that all signage be directed away, illuminated signage be directed away towards Northern Boulevard because of the residential area in the back. I would, let's see, I think there were a number, when this variance was agreed upon, was granted from 1971 until now, there was something like 4 or 5 renewals since then. And I don't know the history of the conditions that BSA put on them, when they occurred, but some of the things that they talked about was, had to do with the changes be listed on the C of O, that prior conditions that the board doesn't waive are carried through to this particular owner. Also that there is no barbed wire anywhere, but mind you, the board had heard this years ago, so that may have been one of their conditions that they sent. No barbed wire along the lot line between the residents and the and along 61st Street. Clean up on graffiti. Let's see, maintenance of removal of debris and graffiti, and of course no cars permitted on the sidewalks or the adjacent streets. And well, there was a request previously for a reduction in the size of the curb cut on 61st Street. Somehow 8 feet got in there, but it doesn't look like it's 8 feet. I don't remember the width of that curb cut. It is quite wide, but we didn't discuss any kinds of, reducing the width of that. But these are some of the things that had come before the board, so you might entertain it. Now, as you can see, we don't have a specific recommendation because we did not meet in person to sustain a legal vote. So, but the report indicates that there was consensus that the use that is being proposed is a use that is more amenable to be adjacent to the residential community. There had been questions, why can't it be residential? Well, it can be redeveloped as residential, but it's a very low density. It only allows 1.35 FAR, so like less than 1.5 of the lot area could be. You would only get 3 units on the lot, so it would have to go through a rezoning, which would come through us. But anyway, so we don't have a recommendation for a motion for you to vote on. When we get to the business discussion of it, someone will have to make a recommendation for a vote.
Okay,
And-
thank you, Elizabeth. Tom, did you have a question? Tom Ryan?
Questions, I have it right here. Starting 61st Street and going to 7-Eleven, it's a dealership, an auto repair, and there's a third building that's now boarded up. That's all part of the property, right? It's 1, 2, and 3, right? Motors, Front Street, and there's a third building here? Yes. And you're taking that, this is all 7-Eleven over here?
On the other side, along the boulevard, yes, 7-Eleven.
And you're going back as far as 7-Eleven, so it's sort of an even backyard line?
Yeah, the building should go.
Okay, I'm just, okay. All right. You realize too, they're putting a dedicated bus lane right in front of the place, so you're gonna have one lane of traffic now. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Okay.
And you're guaranteeing, like every other car dealership that comes here, Honda, that you're not gonna, mess this up, you're not gonna mess this side street. And I have to be honest, I don't believe you. Because everyone says this every time, yeah, we're gonna be great neighbors, we're gonna do this. And what's the volume of cars you're gonna have at this place?
Yeah, so, again, so you have the service center and a lot of the Kia dealership. It's a new dealership, so they can bring the cars that could accommodate the space as soon as the cars need to leave, or let's say a car rolls off the lot, a customer buys a car, they can just bring in a new one. But it's not like it's an independent dealer or you're kind of in a self-sustained corner. They have the resources to store vehicles off-site. So they're bringing in new cars on and off. It's not.
What's your capacity right here?
The proposed capacity would be 19 cars outside and maybe a few cars, whatever can fit inside.
Okay, so you have 19 parking spots, selling cars and repair?
There's no service station. The whole service station element is going to be completely removed.
Just a showroom?
It's completely a showroom.
Okay, so you have 19 spots fills up and there's tractor, trailer, car carrier pulls in?
I don't think they're going to be coming in on tractor trailers. Again, it's not. Yeah, but it's part of a Kia dealership where they have cars all over, so they can just drive them from another place where the cars are being dropped off onto the lot. So they'll probably just kind of replace them one or two at a time as the cars get sold.
How are you going to guarantee to us that you're not going to be a good neighbor and not have more than 20 cars?
Tom, we cannot hear your question.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
My question was, he's allowed 19 spots. Let's give him an extra one just for, he's a nice guy. How are you going to guarantee that you don't upset the delicate balance here, both in 61st Street, which is residential, and Northern Boulevard, since you only have 2 lanes of traffic now? That's my question.
Right. So hopefully I addressed it. Again, the operation is going to be more like you sell a car, you sell 2 cars, they roll off the lot, you bring 2 more in. It's not like an independent dealership where they've sold 5, 6 cars and now they got to bring in a flatbed and drop everything off. We could put any condition you want. Don't park on a sidewalk, don't double park, not a problem. One of the other factors is what's there now. You have service facilities. You have cars that are awaiting repairs. Maybe they're banged up, waiting for a body job, or something's wrong with them. They just can't move. They're taking up parking spaces already. That issue is going to be resolved. So
Where is your local service center?
it's on 37th Avenue, 5301 37th Avenue. It's a 20,000 square foot facility.
This is behind the high school.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other board members have a question? Adam Fisher Cox.
All the car dealerships along Northern Boulevard, in my experience, park on the sidewalk. So, I mean, I don't see a way that this promise is meaningful. But aside from that, I'm curious what would happen here if this isn't approved. Is there a plan for like using this lot as it's zoned without the variance? It feels like, you know, it's replacing a car facility that was operating under an expired variance with another car facility, replacing one that's been a bad neighbor with one that's promising to be a good neighbor, but others along the stretch don't. I'm just wondering if we did vote against this, does this just stay empty, empty lots? Is there like an alternative plan that's being considered? I think there's good reasons why housing probably wouldn't be built here, but like, what is the alternative here, or is it kind of just all or nothing, this dealership?
If it's not approved, if it isn't approved, just hypothetical it's not, it would be restored to an R5 district. So any use that would be there would be basically an illegal use, unless it was residential, which would also mean that the building would have to go down, technically, because you can't occupy it as a residence, and then the owner would do whatever he wants with it. Maybe we put houses, maybe it would be vacant land.
But and since the current tenants, their leases are over, right? So that would not continue there in that case.
Well, the tenants are already gone.
Okay.
So what you have now is a lease that this owner has with Kia on the premise that it's going to get approved and that Kia would occupy it. Otherwise, the landlord technically couldn't deliver, and then Kia could get out of the lease, and then again, buildings demolished or vacant, whatever. You'd have the fences up. It'd be a nice one.
Thank you.
Any other board member have a question? Go ahead, please. Tom Wright.
Thank you. Thomas Wright, thank you for the presentation, and I really appreciate the thoroughness that you provided in your answers after our Land Use and Zoning Committee. I had asked some of those questions, and I was very happy with your response. I want to just create a record that as a community board member, I chose to be a community board member because I wanted to be a voice for my neighbors. I really love Queens, and I'm very, very happy to be here. I don't like the idea of rezoning from residential, period. However, in this situation, I think you were very clear in showing that it has not been used as residential, and the first, I believe, zoning change was in the 1970s. I believe you had presented that. And it has been used, as was pointed out in our committee meeting, as having to do with cars, as you see going down Northern Boulevard. It seems like that's a historic usage of Northern Boulevard. That being said, and in the situation we're currently in, and the land having been used this way since the 1970s, so it's not like the person who bought the house next to it didn't know what was going to be there. I think it's very, very fair. I think your presentation is very fair. It's a lovely improvement. The renderings are beautiful, and I truly appreciate it, and I feel very positively about what would be used. As the Kia demonstrated right there, and it could improve our neighborhood despite not providing additional housing. And as it was pointed out, it's not a huge loss. It would be a very, very small area for any improved housing. And so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Fredericks.
I just had two quick questions for you, and I'm happy to be transparent while I'm asking them. The first one is, how many people are employed there now versus would be afterwards? If there's a shop there now and that's not going to be there, I assume there's a diminishing employment opportunity on the lot. I'm making an assumption. Let me know if I'm wrong. And then secondarily, who owns the property? If you don't disclose the name, like, are they a person or a company that's based here in Astoria, or is it an outside entity? Because at the end of the day, if this isn't being used for housing, and the rent money is going to an outside entity, I don't see necessarily an inherent positive impact other than a smaller number of jobs than may exist there currently.
All right. So maybe this is Rob. He can answer the employment question. We'll probably touch on actually the owners. So one thing to keep in mind is that the two lots, so the lot that's part of the variance and the lot that's next door, are two different owners. And those businesses have been, those leases have been terminated in favor of North Star Kia.
So we're starting at 0.
Well, right. So right now you're effectively at 0, but another thing to keep in mind is that there are mechanics that were working there that have gone to the Kia service station. So you haven't actually had a net loss as far as those businesses being closed because they've gone to another part of Queens to continue their employment. It's not like they're out on the street.
Sure, but our interests are in our district, naturally. But thank you. I would love to hear from you.
Hi, I'm Robert Ziri. I operate North Star Kia. You said earlier about the tractor trailers. We built a 28,000 square foot service facility, and all of our tractors come to 37th Avenue and 54th Street between Woodside and 54th. So we take in all the cars there, we prepare them for sale, and then whenever the showroom needs more inventory, the cars are sent there. So no tractor trailers will be dropped in front of the showroom because the bus stop and all that, it doesn't make any sense. Secondly, all the employees that were there, the deals that I made when I purchased those leases, we took them because obviously we were always in need of mechanics. So we took those mechanics in. Prior to me taking those leases, there were about 10 people in the showroom, which is the former showroom that's to the right. It's not up there. And then Frontier had about 5 employees. Shaji Motors only had 3, which was a family-operated thing. So any employee there, we took them on, and they're working at the service facility that we have now. And bringing this on is going to add, I say, between 37th Avenue, which is out of your district, but 37th Avenue, we're going to add about 40 to 50 employees there, and we're adding another 40 to 50 employees at the showroom location, which I would say about 80 to 90% of our employees are from the neighborhood.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, this particular showroom will have at least 40 WT'd employees working there. That's what you're telling me?
In the showroom, we would have about...
Or on the lot at large, if I'm not being technical about location.
I mean, between porters, there's different operations that go on, right?
So they're not all W-2 full-time employees. They might be part-time or something else.
No. Some of them work for the service department.
Yeah.
But they shuttle cars back and forth to get cars washed, bring them delivered, and then in the showroom, say 25 people in the showroom at a constant, because we have 2 shifts as well, morning, and then we close up at 8.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I understand there are members of the public who might have a question. Oh, Tom?
Again, I lived in this area. You're talking about 40, 50 people working here?
20, 25 people.
Okay. My question is, where are they going to park? And the reason why I say that, because all the other, that whole thing from BQE to Broadway is all, that's fine. They can park. They park on my street. That's fine. But we're already tight space. We already have a school there as it is. The thought has to be given, okay, where are all your employees going to park? You do have parking. Okay.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public here who wish to speak on this item? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Madam Chair?
Liz?
Yes, I just want to indicate that from the public, we had 1 letter in support that was submitted and 1 petition in support signed by 17 people who lived immediately adjacent to the facility. And then there are 2 separate, there are 3 letters in support of the project.
So approximately 20 people then. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. We will vote on this item during the business section.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your time
Thank
tonight.
you. Can I get a motion to adopt the 2023 minutes? Second. Anyone opposed? Okay, my report, I just want to, again, welcome you to our in-person meetings. Hopefully they will last, and we look forward to getting to know all of you. Zoom is just not the same. So I have no other report. I would like to mention that a former colleague of ours who works for the borough president, Joe Nocerino, passed away in July. And I know many of us remember him fondly. He was helpful and witty, and he shall be missed. Thank you. Florence?
Welcome back. I would like to welcome you all back. It's our first time back in person since Innovation Queens review and vote. I hope you all have been well and had a wonderful hiatus. A lot has been going on in the community. Our office has been working closely with the NYPD on several important items. We've seen a fair number of tow operations for commercial trucks in our district, which have been very important to our residents and visitors alike. The encumbrance of street space by commercial vehicles has become a real hardship throughout our borough. Additionally, our office has been working very, very closely with the NYPD task force dealing with illegally parked RVs and recreational vehicle living in the industrial business zone. The DHS, HPD, and NYPD have gone out cyclically checking in with the vehicle dwellers, trying to provide services and to have them vacate the IBZ for the benefit of both the IBZ employees and the RVs. The business association is being created in the IBZ by all the business owners to deal with this situation. DOT has done some of the following updates with mobile enforcement cameras approved for rotation on 48. Lighting requests outside Athens Square Park have been approved. Always stop signs are approved on Astoria Park South and 18th Street. School slow zones approved 23rd Street, 31st Road. School slow zone 20 miles per hour approved 14th Street between 29th and 30th Avenue. AWS approval at 45th Street and 30th Road next to IS-10 and Astoria Heights Playground. DOT held a town hall for 31st Avenue. Designs are underway for a pedestrian bike-friendly space. MTA updates on or around Monday, September 25th. MTA contractors will be establishing their MPT, Maintenance and Protection of Traffic area, on 56th Street between Northern Boulevard and Broadway in order to prepare to start heavy construction work taking place to make Northern Boulevard Station ADA compliant. The site and parking regulations necessary to facilitate construction will be up for the duration of the project and will ensure the safe access to MTA site. Our district has received an additional migrant center and a homeless shelter in a hotel in September. Please feel free to call the board office with any questions or concerns. By the way, when the conflict of interest was mentioned, I already sent you the flyers when I sent you the kits via email. I sent those kits twice with the attachable links where you can learn information about the community board. So you already have the conflict of interest flyer, and that same flyer is always on our website. Thank you and be well.
Thank you, Florence. Okay. Committee reports. Consumer Affairs, Gino Panagoulias.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for trooping this out. It's good to see everyone. So in the packets that Florence kindly sent over, we have about 56 items that are on the docket for approval today. The one business that we just need to remove pending further information is DJP Holding, otherwise doing business as the lingerie shop. With that being said, I'd like to move forward with approving the 55 items and not moving forward with the vote on the lingerie shop. Can I please get a motion? Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Also in your folders is the September 2023 cannabis locations. Oh, okay, you should have received an email copy, everyone, of the cannabis locations, which came before the executive committee in September. So 2 of them are temporary delivery only. And that means the location, nobody will be purchasing goods at that location. They will simply be there, the personnel will be there to garner obviously the purchases, which will be done, I understand, electronically. They will have delivery people there who will deliver to residences only. They are not permitted to deliver, for example, to a business or an office. So one of these locations, which is Basjat Retail, 4700 Norton Boulevard, the consensus of the committee was to accept its application as written and bring it to the board for a vote. There was another temporary delivery only, but they'll be back in October, as there's some question as to whether they're too close to an existing daycare on the street, and whether that applies to a delivery service. We're not sure. We're trying to get clarity from OCM. So that will be back in October. The other application we had was for Urban Clouds. As you can see from the spreadsheet, at 2356 Broadway. For those of you who know, that's the former site of Della Monica. It's a retail dispensary. Their paperwork was in order. They have a security plan. The committee did express some concern about the location. A heavy pedestrian traffic at that location, especially during school dismissal, with all the schools and high schools around that location. The applicant assured us he will review the site and reevaluate where perhaps have a side entrance or a back entrance to alleviate the situation. So again, for this one, the committee saw no reason to not accept this application. So I would like a motion to approve these 2 applications.
Motion.
Wow, that was fast. Thank you so much. I mean, quick. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And next committee, Land Use and Zoning. Elizabeth.
Hi again. I kind of summarized it all before, so at least at this point, we're looking for a motion to open discussion. First of all, whether or not we should put any stipulations, not stipulations, but conditions, things that we want to have this Board of Standards and Appeals include in their decision. So
Can we get a motion from the floor?
For or against?
Are you for or against, Dino? For?
In support.
In support. Second? Tom Ryan. Discussion? Anybody have any?
Okay. I had mentioned some of the things that we had talked about with respect to the term of the grant. They were asking 20 years, which would be retroactive to 2008. Point is, if they don't do it retroactively, question we have is, would the term be less than 10 years? Usually they were granted 5-year terms and then a 10-year term, but they're asking for 20 because that's the extent of their lease. So that's one thing. Is that something you want to put in the recommendation?
Good. Tom Ryan.
I thought the gentleman said that you would have to come back in 5 years.
He does, yes. If it's granted a 20-year term and the Board of Standards and Appeals makes it retroactive to 2008 when it lapsed, they have to come back here in 2028, which is not too far away.
I'm hesitant over residency in 20 years.
Right.
Yeah,
They're
it's
really
retroactive, Tom.
only getting a 5-year term.
So we're really giving 5 years.
But it should say it should be retroactive.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment, question?
With respect to the lighting, with the tree planting, or the the buffer, the landscape buffer.
Yuma.
Are you interested in that, or?
I think that would definitely need to be in there, because I don't know that anyone would want to see, kind of direct lighting into their apartment or anything of that sort. So if it's on the side of Northern Boulevard, that would probably be the ideal, but not on the side.
Okay, so the exterior lighting will be directed towards Northern Boulevard.
Yuma, you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate the applicant for coming in, very professional presentation. I'm sure they will be a good neighbor, but I hesitate to vote in support of this variance. I do not think that this is the highest and best use of this land. We are in an incredible housing crisis, and the thought of taking land that is zoned for housing and giving it to cars does not, I don't think, is a good idea. Beyond that, we all know cars have an impact on the community. We were just talking about that in the previous presentation. There's a huge health and safety impact that cars have in our community. So granting this variance will solidify that impact in our community for at least 5 years.
Okay, do you have a recommendation, though, for the motion on the floor of what you would like to see if it's approved? If it's not approved, you're opposed to it, I take it.
Yes, I am opposed.
Okay.
I would recommend that the applicant think about putting housing in the lot, and if possibly rezoning the
All right,
M1
but
lot.
we're talking about this particular application right now.
Right.
Okay, so unless you have a suggestion for the conditions, I'd like to ask somebody else if they do. Thank you. I mean, we didn't vote yet. You will vote whichever way you like to. However, the discussion right now is not whether to vote yes or no. It's whether we should put recommendations, if approved. Adam Fisher-Cox.
Could we recommend something along the lines of requiring them to install bollards or some other protection so that the sidewalks cannot be parked on, and we're not relying exclusively on their promise that they won't do that?
Sure.
Elizabeth,
Yeah,
did you respond to that suggestion?
sure. We can ask them to put that on there, okay? I do know that they have an access into the storeroom, to the showroom from along Northern Boulevard. I don't know how wide that is, and I'm not sure we can, I've never seen bollards in the middle of a sidewalk.
Yeah,
You know,
I think the usual treatment for that would be that you have the curb cut so the cars can enter.
Yes.
Around the rest of it, you have bollards so they can't drive up onto it, and then you have a
and then
bollard
have
so the
them
car couldn't drive
from
in.
the corner to the edge of the driveway.
Yeah, exactly.
We're
So,
talking about.
so that a car couldn't fit, go up the curb cut and then turn onto the sidewalk for parking there.
Okay.
Go ahead. Anyone else? Tom? No, I called on the other Tom. Thank you so much.
Sorry about
Go
that.
ahead.
Tom.
So sorry.
The other Tom, there's a lot of us.
Call to the chair.
Thank you. Elizabeth, I just want to clarify, because it is a mixed-use block and we do have residential housing right next, adjacent, we did talk about an 8-foot fence or
Yes,
block, and we have that in the suggestion, as well as the tree planting
yes,
along Northern Boulevard
yes. And 62nd Street.
and 62nd Street, and they said it wasn't not permeable asphalt, or not.
It's not permeable concrete, it's permeable asphalt, I believe they said.
Okay, so that was addressed. Just
Okay.
those two, I want to make sure that the tree planting.
But I did see something on the plan tonight, I just noticed it, that the curb cut that goes up into the showroom, it's marked as asphalt. And I'm wondering if that should be defined more as concrete rather than asphalt. I only envision black asphalt on the sidewalk, so I don't know. I don't know what material they're talking about there. It's,
I see. Thank you.
But are you indicating that you're in support of putting in here the information about landscaping it and
Yes.
the street trees? Okay.
A motion in support of the tree planting, as well as the 8-foot fence, as we refer to it, to protect the view from the home that's right next door to the proposed area.
Okay. Antonella, did you want to add to that?
Sorry, did we talk to the neighbors to just find out if they're okay with the landscaping with the trees? Or is that something that we're just bringing up on our own?
I'm sorry, if they're okay with what?
The trees, the landscaping, the planting of the trees. Is that
It's-
going to affect the neighbor at all?
No, it's actually along the side of the showroom facility on 62nd Street.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
It's between Northern and where their driveway, the curb cut to the facility is.
Oh, okay.
Not in front of any of the
neighbors.
residences, but we are talking about a landscape buffer between, so that they can't see into the yard, all of the cars and all that.
All right, perfect. I'm good with that. Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, Elizabeth, can you reread the motion now with the
I will try.
recommendations? You still have a question, Tom? That'll be the second one. Go ahead.
The question is, I don't know if Sandy can answer it. The facility they talk about that's on 37th Avenue and 51st Street that they're going to be shuttling everything from, how big a property is that, do you know? And how much storage do they have? Any idea?
Haven't been there, I would tell you it's very large.
500-car building? That seems large. That doesn't seem bad. 500 cars in a building? Right, I'm not sure what they say everything's going to be at the 37th Avenue, 53rd, which is the service facility. I want to know how big the facility is.
I think he said 20,000 square. 28,000 square feet. 28,000.
Huge.
Located at
Thank you.
5301 to 5315 37th Avenue.
Okay, 28,000 square feet. That's all inside?
I believe it's both. I'm not certain, though. All right, Elizabeth.
Yes.
Please read the motion, reread
Yes.
the motion with the addition.
The motion is in support of the application for 6103 Northern Boulevard for a Kia showroom. with several conditions. The first being that the term of the grant of the variance would be for 20 years, but be retroactive to 2008. Second, the exterior lighting is directed downward and to Northern Boulevard, and that there be an 8-foot high fence, opaque fence, and along with planting along the adjoining residential lot, and street trees up to the curb on 61st Street and along Northern Boulevard. That's what I have.
Yeah, have a second?
Rod Taylor, seconds.
Okay, we will now do a roll call vote.
Hi, all. Getting a roll call vote. Daniel Alberti, your vote, please. Thank you. Louise Bordley's not here. Jean Marie DeLeva.
Yes.
Thank you. Tenzin Tension. Thank you. Antonella Dizavera. Elizabeth Arion. Yes. Thank you. Frank Fredericks.
Against? No.
Okay. Dean Veritovic? Yes. Thank you. Adam Fisher-Cox?
No.
Tyrone Gardner?
Yes.
Thank you. Shahanas Hamdi? Yes. He's not here. Chris Hanway?
Yes.
Thank you. Amy Hauser, yes. Brian Hunt? Richard Kazami?
Yes.
Christina Lastris? Not here, right? Okay. Diana Lamoji? Yes. Thank you. Ethan Lowens? Yes. Thank you. Hugh Ma? No. Nas is gone. Nas is here? Oh, yeah, Nas is here. Yes. No. Sorry. Got it. Jeffrey Martin? Yes. Brian Martinez? Yes. Sam Massall? Okay, sorry. Amin Mahedi?
Yes.
Thank you. Stella Nicolau? Yes. Thank you. Dino Panagoulis?
Yes.
Juliet Payaba? Yes. Thomas Ryan?
Yes.
Maricela Santos? Yes. Dominic's not here. Rod Townsend?
Yes.
Thank you. Kathleen. Thomas Wright?
Yes.
Thank you. Rosemary Yelton? Okay. Marie Tarnielli?
Yes.
Thank you. Against.
25 in favor, 4 against. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Do we have any elected officials here who wish to speak, or their representatives? Come on up to the mic and state your name and sign in, please.
Good evening. I will keep this brief.
Thank
I
you.
am a community board alum / survivor, so I know the time and effort you guys all take to have full board meetings as well as committee meetings. And full disclosure, I served as chair of the license and permit, so never accepted anything from anyone. In fact, the presentation you guys heard earlier, I sat in multiple presentations.
Once a
As the
year.
mayor's office, we have to hear these trainings every year, but anyway, in the interest of time, my name is James Garcia, Director of Community Initiatives at NYC Service. We're a division of the mayor's office. We are tasked with promoting volunteerism across the city. Like many of you, in fact, all of you are volunteering as board members. Sometimes it's a thankless job, but we are committed to our communities, to our city, ensuring that residents are receiving the quality of services by our city. So with that being said, I'm joined here by my colleague, Logan Pace, who will share a little bit more about our programs, funding opportunities, and how you can connect to additional volunteer opportunities outside of your role here. So with that, Logan.
Good evening. My name is Logan Pace. I'm the Community Initiatives Coordinator with NYC Service. So to start off, I'd like to talk about the New York City Civic Impact Fund. So this is a block of funding. It was started in 2020 in the early days of the pandemic to bolster the volunteer capacity of nonprofits combating food insecurity. From 2020 to 2023, NYC Service has distributed $10,000 to various organizations each year. To be a recipient, you must be a registered 501c3 and have a fiscal sponsor. Applications should open in fall of 2023 with the program start date in spring of 2024. Additionally, we have the Spread Love campaign, which is a 9-month-long cross-sector campaign to connect New Yorkers to short-term and long-term service projects with local nonprofits. We also have our youth leadership councils with are targeted for 14 to 21-year-olds who want to engage in their community. This helps young people to develop real-world experience, college prep, career opportunities. They also receive a certificate of completion and service credit hours as well. And lastly, the last program that I will speak on is our AmeriCorps program, which we run 5 of. AmeriCorps members serve at nonprofits for 12 months, and at the end of their term, they receive an education award of $7,000, as well as a small living stipend. To learn more about these programs, you can visit our website at nyc.gov/service, or you may contact me at my email address, lpace@mofellow@nyc.gov. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Did you sign in?
Nope.
Thank you.
That was a subtle hint, right?
Yes.
And I'll
very
share
subtle.
my email too if you have any questions. It's jgarcia@cityhall.nyc.gov. So I expect a few of you to email me tomorrow morning. But anyway, if you have any questions, please. But thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dalma Lama. I'm the Director of Community Affairs at the Office of Assemblymember Stephen Raga. It's great to have you all, and it's a pleasure to be here in person. I've seen most of you in the Zoom meeting. So glad to be here in person. I'm also going to be very brief. I do have some updates for you that events that we have done over the summer. Summer was very busy on our end. We were able to host our first Pride celebration. We were able to present our resolution honoring Ecuadorian Independence Day to the Ecuadorian consulate. And we also hosted various workshops such as legal clinics. We just had our SSI, SSD workshop over the summer. Today we also had our Veterans Advocacy Project legal clinic where attorneys came over to our district office and we were able to assist veterans with their needs. Over the summer, we also had 2 Rain Barrels giveaways, 80+ recipients for each one of the Rain Barrels. We also had mammogram screening where 30+ women were able to get mammogram services. We had a massive health fair where 20+ health organizations were able to come take part, and we were able to give free dental screening, Narcan distribution, free blood pressure and glucose checkup, and a lot of the mental health services, senior care services. This was a massive one, and if you were not informed about our health fair, it's going to be annual. So next time, we'll make sure everyone is informed.
Thank you.
Yes, for the updates, lastly, I'm going to say that we're going to have a paper shredding truck in front of Elmhurst Hospital on September 16th in partnership with Assemblymember Catalina Cruz. So that is our upcoming one. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Farah? No? Okay. President's office. Go ahead. Please announce yourself and sign in.
Hi, my name is Claire Collins. I'm a community board liaison at the office of Queensborough President Donovan Richards. It's really nice to see everybody. I'm going to be attending the rest of the meetings for the year, so it's nice to meet all of you. So I'm going to start with the summer recap. This summer, our office was extremely event heavy. During the last week of August, we wrapped up the 3rd series of Borough Hall on Your Block. Borough Hall on Your Block was a week-long initiative launched by the BP back in August of 2022, and so far we've brought this initiative to community boards 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, and 13. And our most recent series in community boards 3 and 4 included self-defense workshop for seniors, a job fair, an immigrant resource fair, a youth summit, a nonprofit resource fair, a town hall, a bike giveaway, and many more. Announcements for the next Borough Hall on Your Block will be made in the coming months. A quick office recap. At the beginning of the year, our office partnered with Better Health and provided $2 million in free mental health services for residents in the entire borough. Our office launched Operation Urban Sustainability, which is a working group of environmentalists, clean energy leaders, community-based organizations, transit advocates, and more, tasked with taking a holistic approach toward environmental justice, flood protection, and more. For our upcoming events, tomorrow, September 20th, from 3 to 7 p.m., we're holding a climate expo to mark Climate Week, highlighting various Queens zero-waste businesses and offering information sessions on efforts like Local Law 97, which is New York's groundbreaking emissions reduction legislation. So we hope to see you all there tomorrow. And then on Thursday, September 21st, from 12 to 2 p.m., we're hosting a senior appreciation luncheon to celebrate our seniors. And on October 5th, from 1 to 5 p.m., we're hosting a Queens Veterans Jobs and Resource Fair to connect our borough's veterans with job opportunities and other organizations helping them. And then on October 19th at 6 p.m., we're hosting a
Claire,
voting rights town hall.
I understand that you sent this to the office. We will mail all these functions out to the board members in the essence of time here tonight.
Okay.
Thank
I
you
have
so
the
much.
finance reports. I'm not going to read them, but if anybody wants it, I have it, and let me know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Farah. 2 minutes,
All right, got it.
especially for you, a new mommy. You have to get home.
I know. My my daughter's been crying for the last 20 minutes, so I should get home.
Yes, so make it short and sweet. Thank
Yes.
you.
So, welcome back, everyone, and happy back to school. Our office hopes that you all had a wonderful summer and got a chance to rest and relax. So, over the summer, we hosted a backpack drive alongside several community partners. Community Board 1, thank you all for everything that you donated. Community Board 2, New York Irish Center, Woodside on the Move, Long Island City Partnership, and many, many more. We were able to collect over 1,200 backpacks and distribute them to the shelters, schools, and night shows. The council member and the rat czar toured the district, where the director of rodent mitigation and the council member 1 discussed rat mitigation work, such as bait stations, pesticides, carbon dioxide treatments, and abating rat burrows and placing rat traps, to name a few. We'll be following up with the agency and with the rat czar as mitigation efforts continue over the next few weeks. We continue to advocate to DEP alongside our federal partners on flooding issues in the district. This includes, advocating for catch basin cleanings and capital improvements to our sewer systems. We are also advocating for more rain gardens. Our office provided rain barrels and flood barriers to constituents over the summer. We continue our CUNY Law partnership, where we host a housing lawyer once every week to provide one-on-one services to constituents in the district. If you or anyone you know needs assistance, please contact our office so we can connect you with our housing lawyer. We have 2 movie nights remaining. September 22nd is Minions at Windmiller Park, and then September 24th, this upcoming Sunday, is Turning Red at Queensbridge Park. Legislation-wise, the council member has been busy throughout the summer. Please contact our office on any laws or resolutions that you'd like our team to introduce and support. Also, please follow us on social media to stay up to date on legislation from our office.
Thank you, Farah.
You're welcome.
Home to baby.
Yes.
Good night.
Good evening, Community Board 1. My name is Angela Sherpa, and I am with the Office of Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. We have a few updates for you as well. Our office will be hosting a Green New Deal grants webinar next week on Tuesday, September 26th at 3 p.m. We'll be discussing the ways that our office can assist with the grants process, and we'll be reviewing our updated Green New Deal implementation guide as well. Congress is back in session. The Congresswoman is in DC this week for votes, and our office is aware of the potential for a government shutdown. We will keep you updated as the negotiations continue in the House. September is Passport Awareness Month. As a reminder, Department of State recommends that you apply for renewal 9 months before planned travel. The passport delays that impacted the entire country this past summer were unacceptable, and passport agencies must be equipped to meet the need of emergency appointments, which is why our office led a bipartisan letter to Secretary Blinken outlining the New York City delegation's concerns with the New York Passport Agency's capacity last month. As always, feel free to contact us if you need any assistance with the Department of State or any federal agency. And finally, we are happy to announce that we are accepting entries for the 2023 Congressional App Challenge. The deadline to submit is November 1st, and you can register at congressionalappchallenge.us. Our office will be hosting a coding one-on-one event this Saturday, September 23rd at the New York Hall of Science. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I'm going to try to make it 1 minute.
Oh, even better. You will be the hero tonight.
I'm Mafuzul Islam, Community Liaison from State Senator Kristen Gonzalez. Last Thursday, we had a DOT street safety event with almost 200 people discussing plans for 31st Avenue between Vernon and 51st Street. We're pushing for a shelter Wi-Fi bill statewide for broadband and high-speed internet. We just got our bill passed today, this week, I believe, by Hochul, Governor Hochul, cybersecurity for critical infrastructure. As a result of the Fix the MTA campaign, the Q4 bus is now free, which is out in Jamaica, Queens. That'll be it. And my email address, if you need any assistance, is islam, ISLAM, @nysenate.gov. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Samantha Johnson. I'm the community liaison for Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez. So it's a pleasure to meet you all as she is the new representative for some parts of the district. On behalf of the Congresswoman, she sends her hellos, but she's also in DC with votes. And so I just want to give you guys a couple of updates what we've been doing. On September 8th, we had a meeting with FDIC regarding the Signature Bank mortgages. There's a lot of them in our portfolio in the district. And so we met with tenant advocates and nonprofits and civic groups to talk about the portfolio and what the state of the next steps are going to be for FDIC. We are also mentioning about the HERC site that has been placed into the district, and we're much aware of it and are working with all levels of government to try to support the residents there, but also figuring out what it means for the temporary protective statuses and also authorization for work. And so I have a couple of flyers about things that I'm going to mention. The Congresswoman introduced a Fat Cat Act, which basically is a fuel alternative transportation tax for the commercial, not commercial, for actually private planes. And basically it's be a tax for those fuels, and it'll be increased, but those fundings will actually be going to an environmental trust so that would actually go and support environmental justice advocacy work. We also are talking about the Federal Railroad Administration. We did a meeting on September 7th to talk about the safety issues, freight and rail operations, and advancement in technology, and working with the U.S. Federal Administration, Railroad Administration about that. On the 11th in August, we had a Medicaid briefing to speak about the upcoming changes in Medicaid since COVID is over. And then we also have a packet for that event that we have available to everyone here. If you need to get in contact with me, my email is samantha.johnson@mail.house.gov. It's a pleasure to see you all here in person, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Public session. Any members of the public wish to speak? Please go up to the podium and sign in. 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone.
My
I
name
think
is
she
Rudy
has to sign in.
Sarkisian. I've been on this community board for over 23 years, and I'm very involved in the community, which I have a civic association for 27 years. And this year we got a new president, which I wish her luck, but I'm very involved in the community. Tonight I'm here for the reason, the problem we have on Stanaway Industrial Park today. All those are RVs, which I think the community board, the manager of the community board and the chair of the community board, they're aware of it. As of today, I know they did something regarding to that, but the RVs is still there, might be more than what is before, they move on different place. Plus, anybody goes on vacation, they can go there, leave the car there for a month or two. Nobody can remove it. It's a full of garbage and infestation of the rats on the neighbors today. So I went through all the business in the area and got 80 more plus every one of the businesses sign that says they want the sign put so to be clean the street in the area so these RVs can be moving out. And then it's not, this one is due on the night time, so it doesn't infect the workers of there, doesn't infect the business there. But as of today, the community board, they only need Haji Azara, the chief of the sanitation, the only one, he wants a letter from the community board, it's okay for him to go and install the sign to the place, to the area to be clean. Between the Stanaway Industrial Park and by the St. Michael Cemetery, anybody can go there and see how many cars is abandoned there. So please, that's the only thing we ask, to write a letter to Yige Azara there. I have an announcement. Tomorrow night, the association has a meeting of 7:30 at the Still Grand Manor, which is at Ditmas and 45th. And the speaker will be the Board of President Donovan Richard and the 114 Inspector German. So please, you can attend. Anybody can be on the meeting. But we do need that letter.
Florence,
I guess more the people in the community board is not aware of it. So thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is George Stamatiadis. 1 year and 3 months ago, at a public zoning meeting regarding the Innovation Queens project, a member of Community Board 1 chose to insinuate that I was being paid by Innovation Queens for my favorable testimony. Another board member commented negatively about the rezoning of Dutch Kills where I live. These comments were recorded on the chat to everyone. Both board members and brought to my attention the next day. Membership on this board should never, ever be used as a weapon of intimidation to silence citizens. This disgraceful tactic will diminish the dignity and respect that you all so richly deserve for your dedication and hard work, not forgetting the effectiveness of the board for the good of the community. In closing, and I send this out to everyone, including Maureen Mohammed, to be perfectly clear, I never received so much as an ounce of water from Innovation Queens or from anyone else while serving as a proud member of this board and this community for 35 years. And as for Evi Hatzopoulos disrespecting the Dutch Kills, my hometown, a first by a community board member, going from a manufacturing zone to a residential zone was a tremendous lift for our community. It's called Zoning 101. Yes, upzoning worked out for the Dutch Kills community with the help of this board. Thank you for your time. Don't ever use your position as a weapon, not ever. And it was appropriate that I was here tonight to hear that gentleman tell you that you shouldn't take a $50 sandwich, because that's what they cost. Anyway, Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Mr. Stamatiadis.
I'm here, my name's Anthony Cacci, and I'm here to talk about the RV situation on 45th and 46th Street between 19th Avenue and 20th Avenue. It's terrible. The police have, or whoever, did some work. They had some of the vehicles removed. Probably last year there was maybe 50. Now we're down to about 22 or 23. But it looks like a lot of them moved from 43rd Street over to 46th Street. On 46th Street alone, there's over 13 of these RV vehicles. I walked down there today just to see the area, and as I passed one of them, I saw a family outside, a husband, wife, and a small child, and the child waved to me, and I waved back, but the parents didn't seem too happy that I was waving to them. I think what they're doing is renting the RV. It's terrible to look at. It's sanitary-wise, I don't know what they're doing. There's garbage in the streets, you can't clean up. It's really terrible, and I wish somebody could have something done about it. RVs don't belong on public streets anywhere in New York City, never mind here in Astoria. Thank you.
We agree with your comments, and please know that Community Board 1 is working on this issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Did you sign in?
Good afternoon. My name is Gabriel Arsenis. I live on close to Anthony, next door neighbors. I'm on 46th Street and 20th Avenue as well. The area down there is a disaster. The reason why I'm calling it a disaster because these RV homes, they have the shit tanks that, from the toilets. What they do, they flush them when? During the nighttime, when nobody's around. And what do they do afterwards? They turn on the fire hydrants just so they could clean the streets as much as possible. If you go to the sewers, at the corners, you're going to see toilet paper, feces, the whole 9 yards. It's very disgusting, and it smells on there. Another thing is they have generators. How do they run the generators? With gas. Why? Because they want air conditions during, summertime. During the wintertime, they need heat. Same thing again, generators. One RV is using a generator, which is very, very loud. We can't even sleep with the windows open. The other RV home is using power. Whose power? The city's power. From where? You're going to tell me. From the light pole. They opened up the box on the light pole, and they're stealing power from the light pole. I mean, if any of us would have done it, we would have got arrested. If we would have stole water from the fire hydrant, any of us did it, or I did it, we would have got fined or arrested. Like Anthony said previously, it's a disaster down there, especially 46th Street. Both sides of the block and of the street, both sides are full of RVs. They left from 45th Street because 6 months ago, sanitation came with a heavy, which is called a heavy. It's a tow truck to remove the abandoned trailers. But the people that saw it got scared and they moved over a block over thinking, they're going to get saved. But with your power, if you guys can continue doing what you're doing and try to get these motorhomes out of there, because not only that...
I'm sure you're aware we are working on the situation.
Trust me, I know you guys are, but as much more as
please,
you can...
Please make sure you sign in. We want to have your name so we can record your comments in the minutes.
Will do.
And
thank you.
Thank you. Somebody steal the sign-in sheet?
Good afternoon. My name is Domenico Mastrocola. I live on 43rd Street and 20th Avenue also. I'm also complaining about the RVs and all the stuff, but I'm also complaining about Vaughan College. They got their kids that go to school there every day, and I live, a little close to the corner on 20th Avenue, and I got to pick up their garbage. They sit in front of my house with their cars idling for hours of the day, 8 hours, 6 hours. They sit there waiting to go to other different classes and throwing garbage and piss bottles outside my house. And, I don't think this is something good for our neighborhood. I don't have to go out. I mean, I can understand picking up a piece of garbage, a napkin. I'm not picking up your lunch. I'm not picking up your piss bottle. I mean, it's way overboard. And Vaughan College don't do nothing. Why don't you have garbage cans? Why don't you offer your kids a place to stay instead of let them sit in the truck in their cars for hours? We're worried about the climate, and they're sitting in cars for hours, idling, smoking pot. doing all this crazy stuff in front of my house. If we gotta come out, I gotta smell pot, kids going to Vaughan College. How do you go to college and learn how to fix airplanes smoking pot? I mean, you know, we have to put our foot down. And it really isn't right that we gotta, as residents, I know the next block is commercial, but my block isn't commercial. My block is a residential block. And anybody could use it. It's not my block, but it is my thing that if you come and sit in front of my house and you're smoking pot and you're eating your sandwich and you throw stuff, garbage outside and you want to use a piss bottle, I got problems with that. That's not right.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Please
much.
sign in, and we could follow up with Vaughan College. But have you gone to the precinct council, the 114?
I tried, I talked to the Vaughan College too. I've asked the guy there and stuff like that because, you know, their stuff, they burn out sometimes, they do crazy things. And again, they're kids, we have an understanding for them. I know they're having fun, but it's a residential neighborhood there.
Correct.
And, you know, I spoke to them, they should have garbage cans, they should have something outside. I don't need to tell them. You have students, you have people that come there and come to your college and you don't have garbage cans or something outside.
I understand.
You know?
Thank you. Please sign in. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Plenia Sarkezi. I'm coming here because you guys live in this community, I'm hoping, but I don't know if you guys are driving around this community because what they're saying about these RVs, it's like a third world country. You guys need to get in your cars, 46th Street, 19th Avenue, and you need to drive around. Right now, today, I went by Vaughan College that faces the airport. There's campers there facing an airport that is flying out, and nobody is doing any supervision of it. You have the homeless hotel now, right? And then now you have guys who are literally building engines on the street, on that street, as well as, I counted, I have a video, 10 campers. Now these campers are not only there, now if you go down 49th Street by the BQE service road, there's more campers, because this has become an epidemic of campers. I don't know where these people are coming from, where they are. Like you're saying, they're defecating on the street. They're emptying out everything onto the street. It has become a third world country. This is New York City. We pay taxes. My taxes keep increasing, not going down. But here, down the street from my house, I have people living like this. You guys, I know Florence, I applaud you, I know you're trying, but something has to be done. We cannot live like this. Everybody is fleeing New York because our quality of life, you guys are talking about trees in front of a dealership. Have you guys walked down 31st Street? Every weekend I walk down 31st Street. The garbage, nobody cleans up. None of those stores are ever given tickets for what they're dumping outside. I knock on their windows and I ask them kindly, you are responsible to clean up your street. I know it's not your garbage, but no one does it. They laugh in your face and they tell me, literally, they tell me, if you want it clean it yourself. This is not how we're supposed to live. This is why we're all leaving. I grew up in Westchester. I came here as a child, when I got married, and I raised my kids. My kids went to St. Francis Assisi. 3 children, they all raised here. I don't know if I want my kids to raise their kids here. You guys have to do something. Work with the community. Work with whoever we vote in. We're not getting heard. Maybe the people in the projects or the other buildings, but we're not getting heard. Please.
Well, you are being heard, but you know,
I
the problem is there's a lack of enforcement.
It is. Like, I know there
Okay,
is. It's
we're
awful.
trying.
It's awful. I feel bad for you guys, but we are living in it.
Yes, we are all living in
it.
it.
Generis' office tells me, oh yeah, I walk down 31st Street during the week. I said, we live here on the weekends too. That needs to be cleaned as well. But,
You're
like I
exactly
said,
correct. Thank you for your comments.
I just got one more thing to say too. At my house, I caught 8 rats. So now I have to become an exterminator also because again, everything that's happening down there, I have to catch rats in my house.
Well, I wouldn't put it off to that. Unfortunately, there's rat and rat burrows all over Astoria. I'm sad to say. 311 it. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Kevin Geiger. I grew up in this neighborhood and I live here now, and I have a business on 45th Street. I know they said it a million times, but these campers situation is ridiculous. I moved into my warehouse. I run a construction company, and when we moved in 10 years ago, it was like free parking outside. You know, I pull up right in front of my warehouse. I don't need a parking spot in front of my warehouse, but I can drive 4 blocks away and I still can't find a spot because there's campers there. So, I mean, you know, it's a little bit ridiculous. I don't mind walking. I walk all the time, but these campers parked on the streets, some of them, yes, people are living in some of them are abandoned for years. I've called sanitation multiple times, I called the police, everybody says they can't do anything. So I know you said you're doing something, but every time I call somebody, they say they can't, they're not doing anything.
Well, I understand that the abandoned vehicles were towed.
No, well, the one in front of my warehouse, the Greek van that has all flat tires, that I've been told if it has flat tires, they'll tow it, it's still there. It's still there.
Okay, okay, a request has been made to have that towed.
Yeah,
So can you follow up with the office, let's say in 10 days, and let us know if it has been towed?
Are you talking about the abandoned one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Sure. Yeah, there's some, and some people just, you know, using for storage and whatever.
Because I know
else.
what you're saying, and it's
Yeah.
frustrating, but you also have to let us know when things have been removed and have gotten better.
It's getting only worse. haven't
Well,
seen
I
it
know,
get better
but,
yet.
okay, I understand that half
Somebody
are
said they
now
moved some of
gone.
them. I didn't see any of them moved on my block.
Okay, this is New York City bureaucracy. We try to be miracle workers. We're doing the best we can.
Right, but it's going on for a long time, and every time you speak to somebody, like, oh yeah, we can't do anything, we can't, police say they can't do anything, sanitation
Well,
say they can't do anything.
okay, I'm sorry. We didn't say we couldn't do anything, okay? Thank you. No, I'd like to speak to my board members. This was a very extremely long meeting tonight, but please know that most meetings don't start until 6:30. Today was an exception because we had a public hearing item. I don't want you to think that next month you're going to come and sit here for a half hour for no good reason, okay? So thank you for being here, and we'll see you next month. Have a great night. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.